Well, the haters gonna hate, 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 and the fakers gonna fake, 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 baby. I'm just gonna making luck, a Dominion podcast.
I don't know. Did the podcast already start?
This is your way of being like, usually I do that, and here I did doing that.
I don't know. Is that too meta? Welcome to Making Luck, a Dominion podcast. I'm Adam, and you are hearing a voice on your headphones or speakers or directly into your brain, if that's far enough in the future, that you probably haven't heard before on the podcast. That's because I'm joined by a new face with a face. You can see the
Hi.
video. Hi, this is Becki.
I'm Becki.
Yeah, see? I wasn't lying this time. Anyway, there's a new Dominion expansion out. It's called Plunder, even though there's a card called Plunder. We have feelings about that, but what are you going to do? And I guess we should make an episode talking about it, but I didn't feel like talking to myself the whole time, and Wandering Winter's busy, and Jake, well, he's still alive, but he's enjoying his life, so he's not playing Dominion anymore. That's really unfortunate. And you know, it's a different time now than it used to be. And I play Dominion with different people than I used to, because I don't leave the fucking house. And as a result, there's new people, and maybe some of them might be on the podcast if they want to share their thoughts about Dominion. So, hi, Becki. How are you?
I'm good. I have thoughts about Dominion,
Whoa.
especially this expansion.
That's good, because this would have been kind of awkward if you were just sat and agreed with everything I have to say, right? So you're not going to just agree with everything I have to say?
Oh, of course not.
Yeah. One of us needs to be wrong. So anyway, you may know Becki as the Schrodinger sea hag. You dyed your hair.
My hair's not purple anymore. It's kind of faded out.
Yeah,
More like off pink.
my hair isn't that color anymore either, but that's because I removed it forcibly. And I have different hair. I don't know how I feel about that, but in any case, we both have hair. Becki's still alive as of this moment, recording the podcast on January 1st.
By the time this airs, it might not happen, but as
Right.
of now,
You really have no way of knowing, dear listener, until maybe next episode, if I decide to update, which I don't know, maybe I won't. I'll do what I want. It's my podcast. Is it my podcast?
I think so. It's not mine.
It's our podcast today, Becki.
Oh, okay.
And today on our podcast, we're going to talk about a bunch of new Dominion that happened. 2022 had so much frickin' Dominion.
It did. When did the last one come out?
2022.
But like at the beginning of the year?
Mm-hmm. And then we had 3 second editions.
Okay, yes.
It's been a lot of new stuff. In fact, I think the entirety of this podcast in 2022 and even this has been just like, look, there's new Dominion. Let's talk about it. And that's like it. So, yeah, we're gonna talk about it. I should say that even though I had access to all of the playtesting stuff, I was dying. And so I didn't really look. Like, I looked once or twice at one point. I kind of knew that loots and traits would be mechanics in the set. And I had read some versions of some cards and then forgot about them because there's just large parts of my life that I don't remember from that point in time because it was just really good and I wanted to forget it. And so now we have all this stuff, and basically the first time I saw it was when it previewed. And due to holidays and, you know, me kind of dying, this is out maybe a little bit later than normal. We've had about 2 to 3 weeks to play with these cards. And so these takes are still scorching hot. Like, there's still some cards I've never even seen in a kingdom before. But maybe a little bit better. And then also I wanted to say that in the show notes, I'm going to have a link to a Google form where you can give your first impressions, your scalding hot takes in terms of power level from 0 to 10 on everything we're going to talk about. You can be influenced by us. I'm not going to tell you how good of an idea that is, but you could listen to this and then go fill it out, or maybe pause and then go fill it out. It's only going to take you like 5 to 10 minutes of your time, depending on how many of the card texts you have to actually read, again, to give it power level. In any case, I'll have that open for about a week, and then I'll publish something on the blog just stating the results of that, maybe a couple of interesting things if there are any, and you can find that blog along with anything else you could possibly want about this podcast or anything else Dominion related that I do. You can just go to adamhorton.com and check that out. Anyway, that's all of the boring stuff I have. You want to talk about some Plunder?
Yes, please.
All right, let's talk about Becki's favorite thing of the expansion, if I'm not being too presumptuous. Presumptuous? We're going to talk about loots!
Yes.
There's
I
like
love loot.
10 or so things that can give you loots, and loots are these. They're on your screen if you're a video listener. Now, they are treasures. They're not in the supply. They all cost 7, and they all have this loot type. There's a pile of 30 of them. There's 15 unique loots, 2 copies of each, and I don't want to talk about all of them, but they're basically gold with a buy, and then maybe something else. There are 15 different ones, and I think the important thing to note is that 10 of them have a buy, and the other 5 actually don't have a fucking buy, which matters. But Becki, tell me how you feel about loots.
I really like loot.
Why do you like loots?
Because of the power. They have the 3 plus the buys, plus their cost 7, so you can use them for certain things later. They're amazing. I love loot.
Yeah. Which loot is your favorite?
What loot is my favorite? Oh, the goat. Price goat.
That's not actually your favorite. You're just trolling me. Which loot is your real favorite?
Price goat.
Okay. Okay, let's talk about Prize Goat. What do you like so much about Prize Goat?
You can trash with it.
Okay. Oh, a Prize Goat is it gives you $3 in a buy, and then it says you may trash a card from your hand. So you like trashing, yeah?
I do.
I like trashing too. Yeah.
And it also has the plus buy, so it is one of the ones with the plus buy on it.
Yeah.
And it's free, and it's a goat.
Yeah, you see, so here's my opinion about the Prize Goat. Some of you may remember a goat that you may have had for a very long time. His name is Jasper. He's an heirloom. He's beautiful. And you know what? He doesn't make $3. He only makes $1. But he starts in your deck, so that's pretty rad. He also doesn't give you a buy. But you know something? Prize Goat can kiss my That's what I think.
Jasper's glow up.
Here's the problem. That Prize Goat, look at that artwork. He's got like these enormous horns. He's got that goatee, makes him look like a douchebag. Like that kind of goat is exactly the kind of goat that picked on Jasper when he was young. That goat has all of the lady goats flocking around him because they want to breed with him. They don't care about him. I care about Jasper, okay? I care about feeding him lots of food that he likes. I care about making sure that he's happy. He's been happy, and he will stay happy in my deck until the end of the game, where he's been fed a diet with lots of variety, vitamins, minerals, nutrients, people, all of the things. I want Jasper to be happy. F that goat. That goat is a douchebag. I hate him.
The better Jasper.
He's not. He's not better than Jasper. You give me a choice between that stupid jerkbag and Jasper, I will choose Jasper every day. I love you, Jasper. Anyway, are there any other loots that you want to talk
about? I guess the other one, I think that the Endless Chalice one is fun too.
Yeah, so the Endless Chalice is the only one that doesn't like directly give you $3 in some way. Because like Spell Scroll, you can just gain a gold and that's fine. But Endless Chalice, do you want to read Endless Chalice for us?
Now and at the start of each of your turns for the rest of the game, $1 plus buy.
Yeah, so it stays out like hireling, and it gives you $1 and buy every turn.
And
I
you can
actually, yeah,
king's the triplet with the
King's
king
Cash.
one, king's cash.
Hmm.
And then leave that out so you get 3 each turn.
And 3 extra buys. That's so many. Yeah, I actually think Endless Chalice is probably one of the better ones because it doesn't. You don't have to draw it. Like, yeah. So the thing with loots, and you alluded to this, and actually this has been going on a lot on the internet. People are saying, "Wow, loots are great. I didn't expect them to be so great, but look, they're so great." And they're not wrong. Gold and a buy is pretty good. You know,
And a power.
and a lot of times you get an extra benefit that sometimes maybe sort of matters. Um, and that's great. I think the reason people are so surprised that they are so good, which this isn't you, Becki. I mean, you called it, and I don't think you're wrong about this. I mean, loots are pretty good. I think people have been underrating gold this whole time. You go through your Dominion life, and you start out, and you're like, oh, I'm going to play big money. Big money's overpowered. I'm going to play this money density deck. I'm going to put golds and silvers in my deck. I'm going to buy provinces, and I'm going to beat all my noob friends. And then you play for a while, and you go online or whatever, and people are beating the crap out of you because they're drawing their deck. And then a lot of people, and that's a tough transition, to go from a money density focused player to someone who's like, I want to try and draw my deck every single game. And I think, Becki, you still have some trouble with that, although like
I do.
and I've we've been playing together for what, like about 2 years at this
2
point.
years. Yeah.
Yeah, and I've watched that progression. I've watched you shed your fears and embrace
And
the
not just buy province as soon as they hit 8.
right. If you have $8, you haven't already clicked on the province before I can say, so what do you think you should do here? Like, you knew what you, and now, like, I remember one of the proudest moments of my life was you had like $9 one time, and you bought, I think it was like a tragic hero or something, and I didn't say anything. You just did it, and I was never more proud. Like, it was like, you have
I
all
think
this
I also
money.
beat you that game too.
I don't remember. I just remember being proud. If I lost, I probably blocked it out. So
It's true.
yeah, it was traumatic for me. But in any case, a lot of times one of the big pieces of advice people give, I think this is terrible advice, is um, just when you play your next few games, don't buy gold. You are not allowed to buy gold, and just see what happens. I think that's terrible advice. But gold gets a lot of negative vibes, energy, you know, and I think that's overblown. Gold is fine, especially if you have a buy that's on it, because money and buys is good together.
It's a very good combo.
Yeah, and I think people are getting loots and seeing them, and they're having a good time with gold plus a buy. And I think even without other things in Plunder being more treasure centric, I think people are realizing the value of like silver and gold, and doing that in the form of loot. And good for them. I mean, it's just a shame that I might be getting less free wins against people when I'm playing money density against someone who tries to draw their deck when the support isn't there for that. So, were there any other loots that you particularly like or dislike that you want to talk about?
The sextant.
Oh yeah,
Yeah.
I wanted to talk about Sextant too. What do you,
What?
what do you have to say about Sextant?
It's a good card. What do you have to say about sextant?
So, so I have a little story to tell. I came from a diverse family. I've always had a very good gaydar growing up, and it's something that I've just naturally been able to do very well because the kind of people that that are my friends and family friends and stuff, and recently I grew to appreciate the fact that today we have gaydar because my ancestors back in their time didn't have that kind of technology. They had to use the same sextant.
But
Yeah, I might edit in a laugh track there. We'll see. Anyway, Sextant's ability is probably one of the worst abilities out of all the loots, in my humble opinion. But hey, at least it gives you a buy, so it's in the top 2/3. So loot, in my opinion, look, I'm glad that there's gold in the buy in the game. Why are there 15 of these? That's so many. Why do there need to be 15 of these things? I think that loot is proof that Donald X does not care that people don't like boons. If there were like 6 boons, I think that would probably be better. Or if there were 0 boons, I think that would be better. It's not a popular mechanic. I always thought it was fiddly. And Donald pushed it through like 2 expansions, kept delaying it. It was like, I still want to do boons. I want to do, and dang it, he did boons. And we have boons. And it's a big pain in the butt. Whenever I'm playing with physical cards, I don't like it because you also have to get the frickin' will-o-wisps out. It's just a nightmare. And here we are with loots. And a lot of the problem, like, sure, you don't have to get another pile out. You can just get 1 pile of loots out. But like, from an accessibility standpoint, telling someone that it's gold in the buy will get you a lot of the way there. But it kind of won't, because a third of them don't even have a fucking buy on it. And I think that's the biggest problem. Because now, if there's...
You can't plan around that.
Right, if there's loot on the board, there's plus buy on the board. Because there's loot, right? And that's fine, and you're going to go for it, at the very least, for plus buy. Also, I mean, they're good, but, like, sometimes you're counting on plus buy when you go for loots. And a third of the time, you just don't get it, because f*** you.
I had that the last time we played it with it.
Mm-hmm.
I got like 3 of the ones without the plus buy.
Mm-hmm. And, like, I'm looking at the 5 of them that don't give you plus buy. Doubloons, that's, like, the crappiest loot there is. It's just 2 golds, right? Hammer is decent. Spell Scroll is, like, not... I'm not impressed. Insignia is pretty trash. And what's the other one that doesn't give you a Figurehead? You only get to play that every other turn. And while the cards is nice, that's not what I want when I want to loot most of the time. If I'm getting, like, 10 loot, sure, I'm happy to have a Figurehead. But, like... that's not the way things go. And, like, why do those 5 need to be there? Why didn't we cut this loot pile in half? And have them
I
all
could
have
agree with that.
have a little bit of continuity, especially when it comes to a buy.
Especially Spell Scroll, because I feel like that one's out of left field.
Spell Scroll is not like any of the other ones. The fact that it's an action and you can play it as an action, like, I understand why it is that way. Because if you want to gain an action card and it's your action phase, it kind of acts like a wish, right? And that's cool. That's neato, but, like, it breaks the theme, I think, and also it has, like, some interactions that can be a little weird. Like, I think we played a game, it was like a 3-player game with Lurker, and there was this 1 spell scroll in the trash. And, like, we
That's
were...
right.
hopefully it was in the trash on your turn. Because, like, it was super great if it was, and then if it wasn't, well, screw you. You're gonna have to wait till it wheels around and you get a shot at it. Like, I don't know, maybe it was fun, like, the first time I noticed that there was a spell scroll in the trash, but I was tired of it by, like, 3 turns later.
You saw it.
I also didn't get it anymore the rest of the game. That might have had something to do with it. But anyway, those are my thoughts on loots. There's a lot of stuff that gives out loots. I mean, they're fine. I don't think they're a big issue, but just know that if you go for it, there's a 1 in 3 chance you're not going to get that buy.
Especially if it's the only buy on the table, and like they're hard to get, and then the actions, it's like they're hard to get, and the one you end up getting is not the buy.
Yeah, you get some doubloons or something. Hey, you wanted 1 gold? Here's 2, and you don't get a buy. Screw you.
You get $6.
Okay, yeah, well, sure, great. If you can draw 2 frickin' cards. All right, so you want to talk about some of these? You want to talk about some of these cards?
Yes,
These
I
kingdom
do.
cards. So yeah, let's begin. Becki and I have given each of these a rating from 0 to 10, just like maybe you will do if you go to that poll hashtag link in the description. if anything seems crazy, leave a comment in the comments section, but realize some of these takes are pretty scalding hot. Let's talk about Cage.
Cage.
Cage is a 2-cost treasure duration. It says set aside up to 4 cards from your hand face down on this. The next time you gain a victory card, trash this and put the set aside cards into your hand at end of turn. So it is a duration and it stays out indefinitely until a thing happens, which could be many turns in the future. There's a few of these in this set. Becki,
And I don't think I've actually played with this one before.
yeah, the first time I looked at this in the first several games I had it in, I was like, why would anyone want this? And then there was a game with no trashing and only Cage. I'm like, okay, let's give Cage a shot. And I got to admit, I was impressed. It exceeded my expectations. Partially because my expectations were total trash garbage, giving this a 1 out of 10. And also because, like, this is kind of like Chapel in that case. And Chapel's a really good card. So I gave this a 5 out of 10. What'd you give it?
I give it a 3.
Okay. So a small difference. The big difference, I mean, comparing it to Chapel is being very generous to Cage. I think Chapel I gave a 10 out of 10. And this is not that. But the thing is, you can open with it, and then 4 of your cards are gone. And also your Cage is gone. You don't have to draw that anymore either. And so while Chapel leaves you with a Chapel a lot of the time that is just 1 dead card in your deck, and then you're drawing everything else, Cage is gone. But then there's this awkward thing where, like, sometimes you have to buy green cards to win the game. Have you ever done that before, Becki?
No, never.
Oh, you've never won a
You
game? Oh,
just don't remember.
you mean all right? That was good. You mean you've never bought a green card before? Because I don't like to do that either. We
No,
are in
yeah.
the post VP era of Dominion. Please go ahead.
Once it gets to peanut butter province time, you gotta buy that, and then the Cage cards come out.
Yeah, and that's something that you have to deal with. Because, like, while it's kind of cool that, oh, hey, I get them in my next turn, if they were coppers, that's pretty rad, right? That's certainly not the worst thing ever. But also, you have these cards in your deck now, and you don't have a Cage.
And you're getting green cards
And you're
too,
greening.
which junk up your hand.
Yeah, so if you had, like, 2 Cages, say. Oh, yeah, that's the other thing about Cage. You only get it once. So, like, a lot of times you trash 4 with your first Chapel, and then, like, sometimes you don't trash 4 cards with your other Chapel because you want to build your deck. Cage doesn't give you that flexibility. It is one shot. So you really want to be drawing cards with it. Now, that's fine because it's a treasure. It doesn't take an action to play, so you can just get a smithy. Help line your Cage up with other stuff. But, like, without that kind of draw, you're going to run into that issue where you start to green and all of a sudden your deck totally sucks. And then why did you do this? And so, like, it's not nearly as good. Now, if you're drawing, this really can function as trashing. Because when you start to green, just get some more Cages. You don't have to draw those cards again because they start in your hand. And then as long as you can draw everything along with those Cages, then you can Cage the bad stuff. Maybe you're just caging the, green cards at this point and keeping around some more coppers for some extra payload. Maybe you get 2 Cages along with your whatever, or maybe you just mega turn and win the game that way. All of those things are possible, but that's, like, I think that's the extent of Cage's usefulness. It's not Chapel. It's a 5 out of 10. And it took me several games to even get to where you can use it. So.
Yeah, no, I agree. And I haven't played with it, which is part of why I kind of gave it just a rating. Because, yeah, them coming back doesn't seem awesome.
Yeah, it doesn't. Yeah, no, thank you. Hashtag Shepherd Synergy. Okay. All right, let's talk about this next one, Grotto. Do you want to read Grotto for us?
+1 action. Set aside up to 4 cards from your hand face down on this, and at the start of your next turn, discard them and then draw as many.
Cool. And this one costs 2. So I gave this a 4.
I also gave this a 4.
Nice. I would like to say I have never bought this card.
I
I've
think you did.
I've seen it. I don't know. Maybe I did. I've seen it before. If I bought it, I wasn't impressed enough to remember it. It
Yes,
doesn't
I
seem
remember
all
you
that
weren't impressed by it.
fantastic. Yeah. So like the comparison in my mind is Cellar. You get an action, you can pitch some cards from hand, and then you get some cards. But the difference is you get those cards later. Um, Cellar is good in decks that are drawing but have some bad cards. Um, and I think Grotto is probably good in similar decks. The nice thing about this is, let's say I can't trash my 3 estates, for example. I draw my deck the first time and I have this Grotto. So I play it and I set aside my 3 estates. And then at the start of my next turn, those 3 estates get discarded. They're in my discard. I don't have to draw them again until the end of my turn. And I start my next hand with more stuff. So if I have 2 Grottos, the first time I do this, I'm starting with a big hand. Should be easy for me to get back to those estates, play my second Grotto and whatever else, maybe up to 4 stuffs, and that seems pretty great. You can have some bad cards in your deck, and it gives you that little reliability boost at the cost of like not being useful the first time you play it, having to get 2 Grottos, all that normal duration-y stuff. Um, that seems pretty narrow. I can't think of any other time where I would really want a Grotto in my deck. Like maybe it's like a mini Tactician. Like I give up this hand, have a big hand next hand. But like Tactician gives you an action and a buy. This doesn't.
Yeah.
And
I mean,
also,
unless there's like absolutely no other draw, and you have a bad hand, and all you have is like estates and a grotto,
sure,
I could see wanting to just.
yeah. But like if you're not already drawing, I'm never gonna count on that. And so it's hard for me to put a Grotto in my deck with that being the upside, hoping that I draw it with bad stuff. Sometimes you do, and sometimes you have crap in your deck and you want this, but like now we're talking about it's a worse Cellar, and Cellar wasn't that hot in that deck to begin with, although it's probably okay. But you probably don't want more than 2 of these, where you wouldn't want more than 1 Cellar. So anyway, that's Grotto. 4 out of 10. So far, this is looking to be a weak set. 5, 3, 4. Yeah,
Yeah.
that is something I've noticed. I think a lot of my ratings for this set are lower in power level than previous expansions.
Yeah. I mean, loot is so powerful. I feel like you had to tone down some of the cards a little bit.
There were some people complaining about power creep in Dominion. That's not a thing, by the way. Power creep, as it applies to any other game, not necessarily in Dominion. I mean, you can talk about what it means in Dominion, but that doesn't matter when you're playing a game of Dominion. You just look at the cards that are there, right? But in any case, I actually don't think that's a bad thing. I really like situational cards, and I'm really glad that there's a lot more of them in this set.
This one has there are a lot of situational cards here where, given certain combos and other things, like they become like extra powerful, but on their own they're like meh.
Yeah, like Cage has its place where it really shines. Grotto has its place where it really shines. And
Mhm.
I think that's good design. I'm a big fan. So like
I
while I
agree.
don't think these are strong cards because they're so narrow, I'm really glad they're in the game, and I think the game is better with them. I'm not gonna say the same thing about loots, but loots are fine. Whatever.
I
They're
like
better
loot.
than boons, but that ain't saying much.
I
All
think
right.
too, because you were complaining about loots before I actually played with them, and you're like, oh,
Oh,
they're
you
not
just
going to be these great things, and so I was expecting them to just be annoying, and then they were just like, these are amazing. So I feel like you undersold them, and so when I actually got them, I was like, why would he ever hate these?
Oh, I was thinking about how like, you have your first kid and then you have your second kid and it's like totally different. I thought
Hmm.
that's what you were doing. You were
Oh no.
being like the second kid. Which is you're not. I mean, we're of similar enough age that I don't anyway, let's not make this too awkward. Let's talk about Jeweled Egg. Would you like to read Jeweled Egg for us?
I would. It is +1 by $1, and then when you trash this, you gain a loot.
Sweet. And it's a 2 cost treasure.
Yes.
All right. So look at that theme. You have this egg, and then you break it open, and you get something cooler. Kind of like that Game of Thrones, like dragon egg kind of thing, maybe. Or wasn't there that like this one movie with like The Rock in it where they were trying to find these eggs and like it was just this ridiculous movie.
Not that I can recall,
I
but
don't even
it
know what it
sounds
was
it sounds
called.
like something. It sounds like a movie The Rock would be in.
Yeah, like the movie didn't take itself seriously, which I appreciate because it was pretty unbelievable. Anyway, I gave this a 4 out of 10. What'd you give it?
I gave it a 4 as well.
Nice. So, if there's no trashing, this card sucks. I mean, it gives you a buy, but this card sucks. It's a
I
buy.
did like it with the neck with Shaman potentially, because if you get a couple of them, you just keep pulling them out and trashing them over and over again. You
Yeah,
could get like a lot of loot.
yeah, like with trashing, it seems pretty neato. Like it gives me Squire vibes, where like, oh, the way I'm gonna get this cool fancy attack card is I'm just gonna trash a Squire when I want it, you know?
And I
And
think it's the cheapest loot possibility. Where I think all the other possible gaining of loots require a little bit more effort or work or money,
oh, really?
but this is the cheapest loot possible.
I think it's cheap money wise for sure. Um, I don't know about effort wise because there's an event for 6 that just gives you a loot, and that may be less effort. But I know what you're saying, and I do agree
Like
with
the
it.
earliest way to kind of get, because it's hard to get up to 6 immediately. But if you have an easy trashing and this in there, you can get loot in like turn 4 if things line up right.
Yeah, like everyone's dreaming about that Watchtower combo. Draw 2 with a Watchtower, buy this, trash it, top deck your loot. Pretty sexy.
Yeah.
And, you know, that same thing with the Squire, right? Like, top deck a Squire on turn 3, or top deck a Familiar on turn 3 because you open double Watchtower in a Familiar game with Squire. Like, yeah, I've done that. Oh my god, I was playing with someone and that happened, and like they didn't see it, and I opened double Watchtower and they like opened Potion or something, and then on turn 3 I did that and they just resigned. It felt so good. Oh man. It was amazing. It felt so good. Sometimes, you know, you ever have that feeling in Dominion where you find something cool and then your opponent copies you and it's like, man, I feel like I found this and they didn't. I should be way farther ahead.
I'm sure you've never felt that before, Adam. What are you talking about? I've never done that to you. That has never happened.
Yeah, you're right. I can only dream of that. But anyway, with Jeweled Egg and Watchtower, there you go. Now you've listened to Making Luck, a Dominion podcast. You get a slight advantage in those games. You're welcome. I think, I mean, it's kind of neat, right? It's a cheap plus buy, and sometimes that's all you need. And especially if this and loots are like your only plus buy, like you're gonna be getting this. And if there is trashing, like it's kind of neat that you can just break this thing open and get something that is most of the time better, assuming that you cared about that buy. And if you didn't, then is better. And so like the combos with like remake and stuff and upgrade is especially sexy because like I mean the loot's really like those cards because they cost 7. Yeah, remake and upgrade your loots in the provinces and like that.
Mhm.
This kind of puts a little bit of lighter fluid on that thing. So, but other than that, I'm just not super impressed. Like this is just a copper with a buy and like 4 out of 10.
Again, in the right setup, it can really be like a great combo. But if without the right setup, it's not the best.
Yeah, it has synergies. Narrow A plus design, but 4 out of 10 power. All right. Search is next. Search is a 2-cost action duration. Gives you +2 monies. Says the next time a supply pile empties, trash this and gain a loot. I gave this a 4 out of 10.
I also gave this a 4 out of
Wow,
10.
we're giving everything a 4 out of 10 here. The next time a supply pile empties. Becki, that never fucking happens.
That never happens.
Not a single game with Search in it has that happened to me. Okay, that's not true. The province is emptied one time. That doesn't count. And you get your loot. Woo! You get the museum points. Ah! Great. I
Right.
don't give a. Okay, this never happens. So this is $2 terminal. Nothing happens. It's gone from your deck, and it stays out until the end of the game where you get museum points. Like that's it. And like, sure, that's kind of okay. But like, actually actually caring about this and like wanting the loot matters when supply piles don't f***ing empty because there's no plus buy, and otherwise I'm just not impressed. Like, I remember I got burned last time with tent. I was so excited about tent. Like, so many times, man. I'm happy to open with a terminal silver. Give me a terminal silver, man. And then I had to go eat my words, and Jake made the pitch your tent joke, which is still hilarious. But anyway. Yeah, not impressed. You never
I
get a loot
agree.
from this. Big disappointment. Whatever. I mean, I guess if there's a bunch of gainers, but I don't care. I'm ready to move on to the next card. Are you?
Yes.
Cool. All right. The next card is
The worst card ever.
yeah, I'm not going to disagree with you on that. Do you want to read it, or are you going to make me read it?
Oh, you can read it.
Okay. This is Shaman. It is a 2-cost action. It gives you an action and $1. Says you may trash a card from your hand. Wow, this is better than Forager. What's not to like? In games using this, at the start of your turn, gain a card from the trash costing up to 6. Now, I read this card and I was immediately appalled by the artwork. I think the artwork on this card is so awful. Like, who drew this? I don't like it. It looks like a child drew this.
It looks like one of those AI things.
No, those look way
The
better
AI
than this.
generated art.
No, don't insult AI generated art by comparing it to this. Once I got past that, which took a lot longer than I think a lot of you are expecting, I tried to figure out like why you would ever want to buy this card, because you would just get the cards right back. And then I realized, oh, you trash a card and then your opponent has a turn and they gain the card, which makes this way worse. Like, it was bad enough that like, oh, well, here's a card that just says no trashing this game. Why'd you print this, Donald X? And then I realized, no, this is like Ambassador. This takes all of the reasons that we removed Ambassador. By we, I mean not me, because I wasn't involved, although I support the decision. This takes all the reasons why Ambassador was bad for the game and got removed from the game. And it's like, you know what? Let's have those again. Let's do that again. It's fine. All of that bullshit where you're just throwing junk at each other the entire game and never get deck control. And then like whoever.
What did Ambassador do? I don't think I played with that one.
You sweet summer child. You never knew the dark days of Dominion, where we played tennis for 35 turns and accomplished nothing. Ambassador was a 3-cost action from the first edition Seaside expansion. You revealed a card from your hand, you returned up to 2 of them to the supply, and then every other opponent gained one of those. So it effectively thinned you, and it was a junker. Ambassador admittedly was like a kind of a higher skill card. Like, if there was someone who knew how to use it and someone who didn't, the person who knew how to use it was going to win, and it was going to feel very bad for both of them. And then when both people knew how to use it, it was like you just spend the first 10 turns just trying to thin your deck as much as possible. And then sometimes neither one of you succeeded, sometimes both of you succeeded, but most of the time one person just got snowballed, and everyone felt bad. And then Ambassador was removed for the game, because it was bad for the game. And now we have Shaman! We have fucking Shaman! Why did we think that? Was no one around to tell him this was a bad idea? I wasn't, but I had a really good reason. Okay, I had a fantastic excuse for not stopping this. And I should be around for the next expansion. So there's hope for the future. But who the idea was this? Like, yeah, it's not as bad as it sounds. It sounds like Ambassador, which is awful, and it's still pretty fucking awful. I gave this a 10 out of 10.
I gave it a 0 with a smiley face.
I wish I could have, but I think the listeners needed to know. I mean, this will warp every game you play with it in the worst way possible. It's going to make it way less fun.
I did have a fun game with Bishop and Shaman though once.
So it kind of has an interesting interaction with trash for benefit, right?
Mm-hmm.
If you want to put good cards in the trash, like with Bishop, for example, all of a sudden you're not necessarily gaining garbage from the trash.
And it adds a thing, because if I put in a good card to get those Bishop points, you get that good card on your turn.
Right. So so you have, there's this dynamic towards the beginning of a lot of shaman games where like there's just one card in the trash and the next person gains it. And then eventually people get enough trashers, like they put enough shamans in their life. I'm going to mispronounce this card in every way imaginable. They put enough
Okay.
shamans in their life, or shamans, or shamans.
Shaman.
Shaman.
Charmin.
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 Oh. Oh, that's what I'm
I
calling
think
it
we
from now
found a
on.
name for it.
Oh, you just coined a Oh, that's so good. Mm, I'm so proud.
Thank you.
Eventually, people get enough Charmin in their life that
And
that
you just got to
there's
get rid of it.
that there's a lot of cards in the trash, and it's like, okay, so for every turn the rest of the game, you're gonna get junked one, but also now you don't have to worry about like, oh well, if there's one card in the trash and I trash a card with my Charmin, then I'm gonna get that card back. So like if I don't shuffle, then like what's the point? Maybe I don't want to trash the card because it's a copper. I want to play it this turn, for example. Like, oh, some people are like, oh, that's a cool decision, and I'm like, fuck my life. But anyway, there's a we start with the one card tennis bulk, and then we move on to the phase where there's a lot of garbage in the trash. And so it could be that way with good cards, right? Sometimes there's one good card in the trash, and then other times there's like maybe multiple good cards in the trash, and maybe you don't hate your life quite as much. I don't know. I still think Shaman's stupid, but that interaction does exist. I could whine about Shaman for a little longer if you want, but do you have anything else to say?
No, I mean, I every time there's a game that starts up and you see it on there, you're just like, because it's like this unnecessary. It just unnecessarily extends the game, is what it does. It just unnecessarily extends the game.
Yeah. Let's keep going. Preaches,
That's I
sister.
mean,
Okay. Yeah, like and for me, like, if I look at a game and I see Mastermind, I look at that art and I'm like, ooh, yeah, this is gonna be a good time. And I see this art and I hate the art. I'm like, oh god, it's a Charmin game. All right, that's the secret title of this podcast. It's a Charmin
it's a
game.
Charmin game.
All right, next up, Secluded Shrine. What does this thing do?
This is 1 monies, and the next time you gain a treasure, trash up to 2 cards from your hand.
Okay, and it's a 3-cost action duration.
That too.
Yeah, so it stays in play until you do the thing, and then you do the thing, and you get to trash the things. And then you get your Secluded Shrine back. It goes in the discard, and you have to draw this piece of garbage again. I gave it a 4 out of 10.
I like it. I gave it a 6.
So when I first saw this card, I'm like, oh, this is kind of like Trade. The event, trash up to 2 cards from your hand, gain a silver for each card trash. Costs 5 for adventures. By the way, I don't know if you know this. I named that event. You're like, why do I care? It's called Trade. That's super lame. But that was like the first thing that I really did that had like the Adam Horton mark on it, because Adventures was the first expansion I play tested. I was so proud of myself.
That's it looks like you put a lot of thought into that.
I actually did. I'll tell you the whole story, because why not? But first, I want to tell you this little tidbit. So after I did that, I went to one of my friends that evening. I was like, "Oh my god, I just did something so cool! I named a Dominion event today." And she's like, "Oh, did you name it Kevin?" I thought that was really funny. But like this was that event used to be called Farmers Market, actually, and now there's something else called Farmers Market. But like it was toward the end of Adventures playtesting, and Donald X was going and like looking at things and renaming things so he could finalize the names so that notes could go to the artists so they could start on that. So it was that point in playtesting, pretty late on. Cards are mostly finalized, if not complete, but like minor tweaks are still allowed. And he's going through it and he's like, yeah, I'm not super fantastic about this name. And I was there at the time. I was like, yeah, so like market says plus buy to me, and this doesn't have plus buy on it. This says gain silver. What does gain silver say? And then I looked at like trader and like some other stuff that gains silvers, and he's like, yeah, trade. And I suggested a few names based on it, and trade was one of them, or anything in the trade family. He's like, yeah, trade. That's great. It's one of the happier moments of my life.
No,
Anyway, this looked like trade to me when I first saw it. And then I was like, oh, great, it's trade. I'm going to trash my estates and I'm going to gain a silver. And I'm going to feel really good about my life. And then I got this card. And it was the biggest disappointment, like, ever. This card is so bad. It's a terminal copper. You have to draw this and play this. And then you have to gain a stop card to trash 2 things from your hand that you're not playing. The trashing is so slow, and this card is so bad
But
along
then
with
it sits
doing
out
it.
for a while. Oh, well, I guess then you don't get to trash. All right, you're right.
I usually am.
I'm going to take my 6 down to like a 5, though.
Yeah, I gave this a 4. And I mean, 4 and 6, right? Remember, these are just numbers. A disagreement of 2 points is not a really big disagreement. It's a place where maybe there's some disagreement, and I guess there kind of was here, but only minor, right? In any case, I am not impressed. This card is very weak. I'm like, maybe I should have given this a 3. Like, I'm really down on it. It's kind of okay for money, kind of, but like you're just always going to be gaining treasures, and then like whenever you gain a treasure, you have to get this bad copper with it, and like, no, thank you. Like, maybe with crown, still not impressed. No, no, thank you. 4 out of 10. All right, let's move on. All right,
Ooh,
next up is Siren. I know you like this card. Do you want to read it?
yes.
All right, go for
Each
it.
other player gains a curse. At the start of your next turn, draw up to 8 cards in hand. That's my favorite part. When you gain this, trash it unless you trash an action from your hand. It's an action, duration, and attack, and it is worth 3.
Nice.
And it is fun to figure out how to get it to not trash itself.
Yeah. So I gave this an 8 out of 10.
I also gave this an 8.
Nice. So I think thing number 1, right? This should be at the top of everyone's list. Shelters, right? You trash your necropolis in the opening, you gain a siren. Everyone's happy except your opponent, and you just hope that they already saw their necropolis in the opening before you did this, and you remembered to do it, right? That's how you get the advantage. So go second or something. I don't know. That's I think that's the main way to sort of sidestep the whole like you gotta trash an action from your hand. Because if you gotta trash an action, that's real hard to do. You don't start with any of those usually, you know. So you have to buy an action and then not play it and trash it to get this thing. And I mean I guess that's kind of cool. It's about the same as hitting 5, only you don't get a silver in your deck. Like it's about the same as opening a silver to hit 5 to get your junker, only you don't get to have a silver in your deck, which is bad. Silver's great, give it to me. Um, but this card is great. Like it's very strong. You know, it gives out purples, and then draw up to 8. Draw 3 at the start of your next hand, and then also it, counters discard attacks in like a really good way. But it just doesn't stack, right? If I have 2 sirens out, I don't get to draw 6 cards at the start
Yeah.
of my next turn. You just draw up to 8. So you probably want maybe 2 of these. 2 of these
I
to get
also
a.
like how it works with Charmin, because if you have 1 siren in the trash, you could just get that, have it trash itself, get that, have it trash itself, and then nobody has to junk their hand up, and it gets rid of that little extra part of it.
Oh, interesting. I didn't think about that. So you can gain a siren from the trash, and then
Have it
siren
trash itself.
fails to trash another action because you didn't want it to, and then it goes back in the trash and you don't junk yourself. That's interesting.
Mhm.
I hadn't considered that. Look at it. Look at this. We're so happy to find a way to just like remove Charmin from the game. Unbelievable.
And then Charmin is
How
a
did that
great
get printed?
trash plus buy or plus action plus $1. Like, then Charmin becomes a decent card.
Yeah, it's like a better forager, like I was saying before. Not better, but you know what I mean. So Siren. I think that if you have to go through the process of buying an action, trashing the action to get this, I actually think Siren is kind of weak. And and in terms of design, if you don't consider the fact that you can loophole this a lot of the time, I think that's great. I love the fact that junking is being pushed to later in the game. I love the fact that junking attacks are getting to be less powerful because junking is still super great. And this is design space that's being explored, and I think that's a really good thing. So from that standpoint, I really like this card. In terms of power level and design. Well, I mean, I said what I thought of power level. I still think it's an 8 out of 10. Here's the thing, though. Um, this is something you love, right? Yeah. So you wanna talk a little bit about this? I know you have
Finding
some
all the
experiences you
workarounds.
want to share.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So we played when we've had the first time we played with it. I think I made you undo like 8 times because I was trying all these like different possibilities. Like if I did this, does it stay? If I did this, does it stay? Because like some of them they do, but I forgot what we had. It was the one where you have like the plus action, top decking. It was like you spend like a favor to.
Yeah. So there were a couple of options. One of them was replace, where if you gain an action card with it, it gets top decked. And in that case, by the time Siren tries to trash itself, um, the stop moving, formerly lose track rule has gone into effect, and Siren can't figure out where it is to trash itself. So you can just gain a Siren with replace, top deck it, and you don't have to trash an action. I mean, you can still, but you don't have to. And that's one way to do it. But then there was like another way where you can like spend a favor to top deck something, and I think that one didn't work for some
No, that did
reason.
work.
Oh,
That
it
one did
did.
work.
There was another one that seemed very similar, and then it just didn't work. And
Yes, because it was like the way that it. Oh, it was one that said like gain to your deck instead of top decking. It was like a different
different wording.
wording because it gained directly to your deck instead of gaining to your discard pile and then moving to your thing. It automatically gained to your deck.
Sure. So, yeah, because Siren was where it expected to be.
Yes.
It didn't get moved because when it was being gained, it was conditionally being gained. So, like Armory, for example.
Mm-hmm.
Armory was like gain a card to the top of your deck. So if you Armory a Siren, you still gotta trash something, or else you're not gonna get the Siren. And look, I can sit here and talk about these intricate rules things, and Wandering Winder would he would be brimming with joy. But like, we've done that on a podcast before and it got eroded. So keeping track of all of these things is hard enough in Dominion as it is, because Donald X doesn't seem to care about having a game that's like consistent anymore. I have opinions. But on top of that, like, if you're gonna play with this card online, sometimes you're gonna get a nasty surprise. You're gonna try something, it ain't gonna work, and F you, right? If you're playing with it in person, you're gonna be sitting there like you're gonna be having, actually, you can't do that because it doesn't work this way, and like that's not fun. So like
Or you
why?
just play it without realizing what you're doing, and
And look, and like I know that this choice was consciously made. I know that this didn't get to print and they were like, oh, Billy Bob, like there's all these ways to sidestep it. Maybe we should have done the wording differently. Like, of course that
no,
discussion
because when it was
happened.
announced, it was in like official forum. Like there
Yeah,
are a bunch of ways. I wonder if you can figure out what it is.
I
Kind
know,
of
and he's
thing.
proud of this. Why is he proud of this? This is a terrible thing. The card is interesting and well designed the way it was with no loopholes. And
I
there's
like the
another
loopholes.
card. Good for you. There's another card in the game, Animal Fair, that has a wording already in the game that you could have just used for this as an additional cost to buy this card. Trash an action from your hand. That's all you had to do. And then it would have been clear. It would have been so clear what you have to do to actually get this card. But now it's not. And there are rules lawyers, there are people that enjoy it. Those people are wrong. They're the minority, they're wrong, I'm right. Why did you do this? Because now, whenever there's Siren in a game, I have to look for that. And I have to find it, wonder if it works, and then hopefully I don't get screwed over. That's not fun. I don't want to do that. I just want to play Dominion with cards that do what they say they do. This isn't Hearthstone, where cards just say something and then it doesn't happen that way and you just have to accept it. Or maybe it is now. Welcome to the future.
And I do imagine, especially the way that this is worded here, if you don't play online and just play in person, You would probably have no idea about these loopholes
until you
because
run into someone who does. But
it does.
yeah, you're
Because
right. Yeah.
the way you read it is trash this. It doesn't say trash this, but if it moves one time, then don't trash it. And then,
It should say that on the card. Trash this, but if it moves one time, don't.
But in this circumstances, it should be trash, but not in this circumstance.
Thank you for saying that. I'm glad you said that. Do you have anything else to say about Siren?
It's a mermaid.
Oh yeah. There's probably like some thematic thing, like doesn't it, like, it looks like a pretty woman and then you go and you try and like have sex with it because that's what people did with women that they saw in this time, and then all of a sudden she like grabs you and pulls you down to the depths and drowns
Well,
you
it's
and
like
feasts on your flesh or something like that. Yeah.
I think it's just like if they have like a song, they sing that like draws attraction, but then when you get closer to it, you like crash or something like that.
Yeah. It's nice to see women represented in Dominion cards.
Yay. So glad we are.
Anyway,
For the witch, you got junking. You got
it used to be a lot worse. Okay, if
hey,
that's
at
any
least you have one on the
consolation.
podcast now, so you're improving.
Oh God. Okay. Anyway, before I get hate mail, I'm being sarcastic. I hope that's clear. All right. Next up is Stowaway. Stowaway is a 3-cost action duration reaction. Says at the start of your next turn, +2 cards, and then the reaction bit. When anyone gains a duration card, you may play this from your hand. There's a little duration sub-theme in the game. There's a lot of durations in Plunder. This is a duration, so you sometimes get to play it, quote, early, like Caravan Guard style, without an action, which matters a lot more for Stowaway than it did for Caravan Guard. I gave this a 4 out of 10.
Gave this a 7.
It happened. Disagreement. All right, get your popcorn,
and for a very
kids.
specific reason.
All right. Why did you give Stowaway a 7 out of 10?
So for me, who isn't maybe fully experienced in the game, and I've gotten a lot better, but there's still a lot of times where all of a sudden I just look up and you've got like 80 cards played and you're just like gaining left and right. And I'm just like, here's my one buy and my gold. If you have Stowaway. There was like one game where I had like 2 of them and it just kept popping up. So every time he bought a duration, I was able to get the extra draw. And I just like it because it kind of gives me a little bit of a bump up that I might need when I don't play 100% correctly with Adam in particular is why it gets the 7.
Yeah, so like it becomes kind of like a lab because you don't need an action to play it, and then you get the 2 cards.
Mm-hmm.
So like it's kind of like a lab for 3, which is great if you have it in your starting hand. And in a lot of decks, you may find yourself in that situation.
There are a lot of duration cards on here.
Yeah, there's like 3 or 4 of them at least, potentially more. Yeah, to me, like, this is Enchantress without the attack. This whole reaction bit, like, this just never happens. And when it does, like, woohoo. If you trigger it yourself, you saved yourself an action, which is kind of like, I mean, we have a precedent in this for Sheepdog. At least Sheepdog draws you the cards now and, like, has a less conditional gain. Like, this just seems strictly worse than Sheepdog, which is, like, I think I maybe gave it a 6. I'm really confused at this card, if I'm being honest. Like, it just seems really bad. Like, why didn't this get
But you get
buff?
the draw 2, you get the +2 that turn. Because you play it if you react to it. If you react to it, though, that's the start of your next turn.
Sure, if you react to your opponent gaining it on their turn, you get it on the start of your next turn. But if I want to trigger this myself, so let's say I gain on my turn a duration card, it's kind of the same as if I had played it, because I won't get the cards until the start of my next turn. Yeah. So that was the comparison I was saying. Thank you for forcing me to clarify.
You're welcome.
I don't know. I'm looking at giving this a 4, and I'm like, why did I give this a 4? I should have given this a 3. I just don't think this is very good. I don't want to open with this. I mean, having duration draw is kind of cool, but like, how many times do I put an Enchantress in my deck so I can do that? Like, not that much because it's like not that great. Anyway, my thoughts. Do you have anything else to say about Stowaway?
Nope. I think it, especially if you have like lots of actions or things to kind of get that extra draw cycle going and set up for a good hand. I like it.
I'm glad you like it
Thank
because I don't. All right. Next up is Taskmaster. You want to read this bad boy?
It is +1 action, +1 monies, and if you gain a card costing exactly 5 this turn, then at the start of your next turn, repeat this ability. It is 3 cost, an action, and a duration.
Nice.
Now back to you, Adam.
What do you think of this card?
I don't know. I think we played with it, but I don't think I ever bought it.
I think you may not have bought it. I know we've played games with this, and I've bought it. So I gave this a 7 out of 10.
I gave it a 5.
Yeah. So I looked at this card, and I had a similar first thought to other people. This is strictly worse Fishing Village. Now, first of all, there's a lot of room to be worse than Fishing Village and still be a very good card. So worse than Fishing Village isn't saying much. But also, then you just play with it once, and you realize, oh, it isn't strictly worse than Fishing Village. Because if you can gain a 5 every turn, then you don't have to draw the Fishing Villages. Like ever. They're just out. They're giving you the action and $1 at the start of your turn, just like a good Fishville does. And then you don't have to draw it. You have to draw it once to play it the first time. And then
Oh, it
that's it.
doesn't. You repeat the ability, and that part is the
And
ability that you repeat.
yeah, and it's
I
a
thought it was
duration
just the
card.
one action, the one action $1 was what repeated, not the fact, not the repeating.
It all repeats. So
Okay.
it's one of those duration cards that stays out until a thing happens. And in this case, the thing happening is you didn't gain a 5 on your turn. So then you have to discard it. So if you
Yeah.
can get some of these out and keep them out, then like you don't ever have to draw your villages. You don't have to worry about not drawing your villages. You don't have to worry about like stop cards. Like Fishville is a stop card every other turn. You don't have to. You also don't have to necessarily worry about buying extra copies of these. Now, like, sure, it only gives you the village effect on the duration turns, and like Fishville gave you 2 actions when you played it. So like in Fishville's case, you play it, you get an extra action. The duration one, you get an extra action. So like, but you do have to buy more of that, and so these are easy to get out and keep out. Now, there has to be a good fiver. I don't want to put a duchy in my deck every turn so that I can keep these out. That defeats the purpose. It has to be a fiver that you want. But it's fivers, man. Dominion is a game of fivers. There's gonna be a fiver a lot of the time. And when there's not, Taskmaster's really clear about it. It's really clear, like, oh, there's no good fivers. I'm not gonna be good this game, so don't get it, and you don't have the village effect. I mean, maybe you do. Maybe you buy a duchy just so you can have a village. Maybe it's that good. But no, you won't, because that's not a thing. I gave it a 7 out of 10. I think I gave Fishville like a 9 out of 10. So, I mean, it's certainly not as good as Fishville, but like, it has its place. When you meet the condition, it gives you that Fishville plus a little bit of a boost.
Yes, but you have to have that condition met, and then if there's no plus buy, but you're going to buy fivers for the rest of the game.
Yeah, if you can't like gain a fiver and also green at the same time, yeah, this feels real bad. Right, but also, why do you want those actions so much and care about the draw so much if there's not the way to do that? So
Fair.
it enables a deck that, I mean, if there's no plus buy, wasn't going to be enabled anyway. So it's not as narrow as a lot of these other things, but it's just not as strong. And like when I say it's not as strong, I don't think that's a bad thing. I like that. I think this is a better design card than Fishville. It's more complex, so But this is
Yeah,
the kind
the
of
more words,
complexity.
the more words on the card, the worse they are. Just.
It's true, yeah. Especially, well, I mean, the letter E. We've talked about that in an episode on the podcast, and go back and listen to that. It's some of the greatest content we've ever made. But this is the kind of complexity I think that pays for itself. I'm a fan. Good job, Taskmaster. You are master in that task. Let's talk about the next one, Abundance.
Abundance.
It's a 4-cost treasure duration. It says next time you gain an action card, +1 buy and +$3. This will stay out until you gain an action card, and then you gain an action card. It's a treasure, and it stays there, and then you get the buy and $3. Neato. It's like a buy and a $3 discount on the next action card you buy. I gave this a 4 out of 10.
I gave it a 5 out of 10.
Cool.
They stack, and I kind of like that.
Yeah, and the reason I didn't give it less than 4 is because they stack. This is not good.
Are we gonna get some fish action?
Yeah,
Speaking
so
of fish, Bill.
if you're a video listener right here, you can see in the background of my camera, my cat is now looking at the fish tank, and sometimes he jumps up at the fish to try
It's one of my
special.
favorite part of the calls. Is just paying attention to what that cat does.
He looks like he might do it, but we'll see. In any
Sometimes
case,
he teases us.
it's true. So it is hard to get like an actual plus buy out of this, and I say that in inverted commas, right? Because you have to gain an action card to get the buy from this, and it's hard to do that like every turn, right? Because this is a treasure. So like if I'm gonna play a workshop and gain an action card, well, my abundance had to be out from the previous turn to give me the buy. And like, yeah, you can get the buy that way and then maybe buy 2 provinces, but like that's hard. It doesn't work that way very well with workshop, right? You're gonna need like 4 abundances to get 2 buys a turn with your workshop play. Like that's, I mean, yeah, you can workshop the abundances, but meh. Like it's hard to build that deck. It's awkward, and there's very few treasures that will just like gain you the action cards directly. So now you're looking at a deck that has like, I misspoke when I said the workshop thing. 2 abundances and the workshop to get your 2 buys. If you have 4 abundances, you play 2 of them on a turn, buy an action card, and you have 2 buys for provinces or whatever. And then you play your other 2 abundances. Wait, you only need 2 abundances for this. Yeah, because they'll get discarded if you. I've played with this card so much.
Yeah, I've only played once, but I played against the bot, and it totally was great against the bot.
Yeah, I don't doubt that. It's really hard to get an actual plus buy from this card, and it costs 4. So that's what I think.
But it's like if you need a little bit of extra money, right? You buy like a $2 card, and then all of a sudden if you have them stacked, you can get like more money that way.
Yeah, if there's ruins in the game, you can just buy that ruins and then spend all that delicious money on whatever else you wanted. And then with that ruins, you can trash it and gain a siren. And it's an action card.
Look at this. We've got some power going here.
Okay, great.
In this particular setup, this would be great.
4 out of 10 abundance.
5 out of 10.
Nice. Okay, next. Cabin Boy.
Cabin Boy.
Well, what does Cabin Boy say?
It is a +1 card, +1 action. At the start of your next turn, choose one. +2 monies, or trash this to gain a duration card. It is worth 4, and it is an action duration card.
Nice. So, it's like a duration conspirator. You get the card in action now, and you get the money next turn. Or maybe you get another one of these. This is weird. It's hard for me to imagine where this is like really excellent, you know? Because you need to get a lot of these. It kind of helps you get a lot of them, but it all just seems very slow.
It does seem slow, but I do feel like, especially because I've been playing with extra of these cards kind of mixed in, almost half of these cards are duration cards.
Yeah, if there's some really juicy duration that you really want to get and is expensive, this could definitely
And
be
it's
a way.
consistent, and it's a consistent gainer, so you can continually gain these duration cards with it.
So, right, it is a gainer. I don't know that I want to use the word consistent because it is a duration. It'll miss shuffles.
Or you have to trash it to gain it. Never mind. So it's not consistent.
Well, yeah, but the point I was making is you're not going to gain that card until the start of your next turn, which means you could have shuffled in between then, and now you're not going to see your duration card for a minute. So, like, it is pretty slow. It all seems pretty slow. I think trashing it to gain another duration card is pretty limited because, like, what is that duration card? I'm really only seeing hireling here because if it costs 5 or less, then why don't you just get a silver and buy it? Like, you're gonna have it faster. And now you have this silver as opposed to, like, get a cabin boy, hope that you draw it soon enough that you don't shuffle before you actually gain the stupid thing. So, like, the cabin boy as a feast thing, like, doesn't seem fantastic. And
But it is a silver in a
right,
sense too.
right. I think that's where you're going to use this card most of the time is to
Mhm.
take that money because I just don't think gaining the duration card is all that sexy unless hireling. And I really am struggling to come up with other examples where I will like excite. Oh, captain, captain. That's probably good. So hireling and captain. Those are like that's the entirety of all durations in Dominion that cost more than 5, right? Leave a comment in the comments section. Tell me what I missed. Uh, yeah. So I gave it a 5 out of 10. That whole extra silver thing, like it's probably good. Like in decks where you really care about not having stop cards, but like it's just very slow and it's hard for me to imagine where this thing is really great. So the upside just seems so little and the slowness. Anyway, any more to you have anything else to say about Mr. Cabin Boy?
I've never played with Cabin Boy, so I haven't had like I haven't seen that.
It's true. I also have never played a game with this card in it before.
So I can't 100% for certain say it's one that I love or hate.
Nice. All right. Next up is Crucible. It's a 4-cost treasure. It says trash a card from your hand plus $1 per dollar it costs. So it's like Salvager, only instead of giving you a buy, it's a treasure, so you don't have to spend any actions on it.
Which I didn't know when I originally gave it my rating. What did I change it to? I don't remember.
I gave this an 8 out of 10.
I think I originally gave it a 5, but I think I upped it up to a 7.
Okay.
After I realized that it was a treasure.
Yeah.
Yes, but I don't think I actually upped it in there. I just upped it in our chat. But I yes, when I thought it was a action card, I was like, this isn't great.
Yeah. So like the whole, I mean, Salvager, obvious comparison. Salvager is better at trashing good cards than this because it gives you the buy that's baked in. And usually in that situation, I'm not too bothered about spending the action to get the buy. But you know, this doesn't take an action, so this is much friendlier to open with. And I think opening is, I mean, Salvager's great in the opening. You trash an estate, you get 2 money, you buy your fiver. All of the things you could possibly want are happening for you. So, like, I'm not upset about it. And Crucible does that for you and gives you the flexibility to open with this and a 3-cost terminal, if that's something you choose to do. So that's where Crucible has the advantage, especially because you're not caring so much about that buy in the beginning of the game. Unless there's Fool's Gold! Hurrah! Edge case with... Anyway. But I think overall the lack of a buy is probably something that I don't know. This is just like frickin' Salvager. Like, I'm trying to split hairs here. I gave it an 8 because I gave Salvager an 8, and you open with this when you want to trash estates and get 2 money. The end. I have nothing more to say about this card. Anything for you?
What's a crucible?
So
I
when I
feel
did
like I
my
should know this.
when we did chemistry labs in high school and college, like whenever we were like trying to melt like metal or something, we would put in like this little ceramic dish the size of like a ramekin that you'd put your barbecue sauce in and like put it over the Bunsen burner. And that was called a crucible.
Because there was that play about the Salem witch trials or book called The Crucible, and then I was just unsure. Anyways,
Oh.
I read that in high school.
And
And so
the
I always thought it had to do with that. And then I look at the art and I'm like, that has nothing to do with that.
yeah, the
So
art is the whole like molten metal thing. So
yeah,
like I think the crucible might be what they're pouring the molten metal into, which is slightly different than what I said, but that's all I know about what a crucible is.
good chat.
Yeah, good talk. All right, next up is flagship. Would you like to read flagship to us?
I can. Flagship is gives you 2 monies, and the next time you play a non-command action card, you replay it. And it is worth 4, and it is an action, duration, and command.
Right, and the command type, I think. Well, I mean, it helps. It means you can stack your flagships. You can play multiple flagships, and you don't have to worry about what happens when I played a flagship and now I have to replay the flagship. Whatever. It's like royal carriage in that sense. You stack your royal carriages, and then next time you do the thing, then you get to replay it many times. The difference is this is required on the next time you play the card. You don't get to save it up like Royal Carriage and call it on exactly the thing you want the exact number of times. That's not how this works. This makes you do all of them on the next one, but it gives you $2 when you play instead of an action. So that's pretty neato.
And I like how, even though it's a duration, it's not like the next turn. It's like, so you can play it as like a non-duration card by
Right.
just playing it and then playing an action card immediately after.
Yeah. So if you have 2 actions, you can play flagship, you can play your cantrip, and then that's it. You got your 2 monies, you got your 2 cards, 2 actions, you spent 2 cards. It's kind of like a village that gave you $2, but you had to have 2 actions to start. There we go. That was silly. I don't know why I made that comparison. Why do people make these Just ignore that. I'll edit that out. I'm not going to. I gave flagship an 8 out of 10.
And I gave it a 7.
Yeah, this is like a throne room, only it's a terminal silver.
It is, and it is, but it is like a throne room too, who also, like, those times that throne room doesn't actually fit with, like, you get the throne room and then you don't get any action cards that turn.
Yeah, that's a little rough. And that
But this,
doesn't happen with this. Right. That's not how this card fails. This card fails because it's terminal and your turn's over, right? So in Magical Fairyland, you kind of play these at the end of your turn, and then you start your next turn with a non-terminal. You have your turn, then you play your flagships at the end, right? So you get the reliability that way, but then also this card is payload. And overall, you're not like spending actions, hopefully, to do that entire exchange. And then sometimes you can gain them. You can flagship a village and just have infinity actions, and that's great because it's the beginning of your turn, so you're happy about that. Throne Room I gave it a 9 out of 10. I gave Flagship an 8 and contemplated giving it a 7, and you gave it a 7. So like, it's not Throne Room. It's a duration card, which you can sidestep the whole shuffle missing things, but if this is your only village, you really do need to think about your life, because this by itself without some other village is not going to give you as much village as Throne Room does. That's not as good at being a village. It's better when there's other villages in your life.
I agree.
Yeah. Good call. Agreeing with me, usually a solid choice. All right. Next up is Fortune Hunter. What does this thing do?
It is 2 monies, and you look at the top 3 cards of your deck. You may play a treasure from them, put the rest back in any order. And it is worth 4, and it's just a plain old action, which I think is like one of the first ones we've had.
Is this the first
Shaman's
time?
one too.
We don't talk about that one.
We don't talk about Shaman.
It's not called that, remember?
Charmin.
We don't talk about Charmin. Charmin told me my fish would die, and the next day. Anyway,
Next
I
day
gave
your
this
cat got it.
nice. I gave this a 4 out of 10.
I gave this a 6, but now that I read it, I'm going 5. 5 out of 10.
So I read this card and I was like, this is great. You open with this, it gives you 3 money. That's fantastic.
But you put it back on the rest in any order, and not so then you're just gonna get those cards you didn't want in your next turn.
Whatever, man. I was getting them anyway. Like I was chuffed at this card. Like this makes it so easy for you to hit 5. It's you open with it and it gives you 3 money. Like you're at least gonna hit a copper with this. And then I played a game and I put this in my deck. And it was the biggest disappointment of my life. This thing caused so many shuffles that I hated. And it was not worth it. It was not worth it. If you open with this, you got to draw it on turn 3. It has the orange and tan problem. If you don't draw this on turn 3, that sucks. You're counting on your turn 3 without your $4 buy to be amazing to make that shuffle good. That never happens. And also, I never draw this card on turn 3. I will never draw this card at the top of a shuffle. I will draw all of my settlers at the top of a shuffle. I will not draw this at the top of a shuffle. This card is only good when you're lucky. Don't count on it. This is trash. Why did I even give this a 4? This should, well, because it does make you $3. So I gave it a 4. No, thank you. Pass, Fortune Hunter. You're a big disappointment.
See, okay, so I had it originally high for the same reasons that you did, but I feel like because if you play the treasures from them, right, and put the rest back in any order, that means your next turn is going to be like, depending on what's in there, you pulled all the treasures out of the 4 cards, and you can have like 3 estates instead.
Yeah. Sounds bad.
Like if it discarded those 3 cards, I would like it better.
I guess. I mean, I still think the reveal-y bit, if you're not causing an unwanted shuffle, is mostly upside. In almost any deck I can think of. You get the choice of taking only the treasure that gives you what you need to leave as much money on top as you want. You know, this can sometimes even make you more than 3. But, I don't know. It causes shuffles that you don't want. It's not great when you're drawing a lot. Pass. Give me silver, man.
Also, one I haven't played with yet, so.
Yeah, I bought it in 1 game and had serious regrets.
No regrets.
I had all the regrets. All right, next up is Gondola. Either now, it's a 4-cost treasure duration, either now or at the start of your next turn, plus $2. And then when you gain this, you may play an action card from your hand. So, I give this an 8 out of 10.
This is one I gave a 4.
Yeah, and then I have you revising that to a 7 because I told you that this is a treasure and not a terminal action.
Oh, that's the one I was thinking of, not the when I was saying the revised to the 7 before. That's the one I revised.
Oh, so you think Crucible's trash?
Yes, Crucible I'm still not okay with.
Wow. Okay. Okay, some
But
disagreement
let's see if you
there.
talk about it. I'm putting it up a little bit. I'll give it a 5 now.
Okay, good. I like the fact that you're changing your opinion to be more like mine.
Well, yeah, I hear you talk about it. You make it sound so good. You're like
Man, I should have a podcast or something.
you're like a card salesman.
Yeah, I sold Fortune Hunter so hard. So good. Yeah, so this is...
You don't want this fortune teller. Check out this shiny new card over here.
Yeah, Gondola, this is way better than Fortune Hunter. Way better. So this is strictly better than Silver for 4. So regardless, a lot of times you're just going to see this getting bought a lot of the time. That's just the reality of better than Silver cards for 4. That's going to happen. The thing is, with Patron, you know, Patron has a couple of things. That's the other, like, better than Silver for 4. Patron is good. It certainly has places where its usefulness is very good. And then it has that awkward reveal thing, which if you don't speak English, fuck you. And with Gondola, like the the idea that like this isn't royal seal better than silver. Like that was only minorly better than silver. This is good. I mean, the duration part of this, it's great. Like it helps smooth out your money, or it helps smooth out whatever payload if you're I mean, that's useful. I've used it a lot more than I ever thought I would, and I thought I would be using a decent chunk of the time. And then this card is a village, kind of like Patron. It's a village with some limited applications. Patron can effectively let you bank actions for future turns and give you villagers. That's quite good. This thing, when you gain this, you may play an action card. That's great. That's great. I would love to gain a silver that's better than a silver, and also
But
is a
only if you
village.
have action cards in your hand, though. So,
Okay.
like, if this is one of your early cards, like, it wouldn't be a great one early.
Well, so the thing is, you're going to build your deck a little bit differently, so that you're going to care about terminal collision less. Because I'm gonna terminal myself more, knowing that I can just put a gondola. I can just get a gondola and bail myself out of terminal collision and be happy with my life. So it can be good. I mean, this is definitely a useful ability, and it's something that I found myself doing quite a bit.
And then also, it's only when you gain it. So how many of these are you going to want to have in your hand? How many are you going to...
Right, and so that's the main limitation. You only get to use this a certain amount of times over the course of the game. So like, you're not going to be making a reliable deck out of doing this thing, right? I mean, you can't. I mean, you could theoretically like trash it and gain it with treasurer, but now, I mean, the treasurer was terminal. Like, this is not something that's sustainable. It's just a useful thing, and sort of along the lines of patron. I would say patron was a little better at being a village, but this is a lot better at being better than silver in terms of money.
Yeah.
So 8 out of 10.
Yeah, because patron, you could bank the actions. So
Right, villagers are just super great. They're always there when you need them. This is not always there when you need it, because if the pile's empty, you didn't want another stop card in your deck, or you don't have $4. Well, fuck you, man. Patron would have been there. All right. Moving on. Harbor Village. What does Harbor Village do, Becki?
well, so glad you asked, Adam. Harbor Village is 1 card and 2 actions, which makes it a village. After the next action you play this turn, it gives you...
Any money.
After... Yes, if it gave you any money, then you gain money. You get +1. And it is worth 4, and it is also just a plain old singular action.
Oh, we got another. Yeah, you're doing all the plain old actions then, huh? Yeah, I give this a 7 out of 10.
And I gave it a 5 out of 10.
Yeah, so if this was just a village for 4, I'd probably give it a 6 out of 10. This is a thing. I tend to give villages higher numbers than most other people would. I don't know if you know this, but when you can play more than 1 terminal action in a turn, that's overpowered. Super great. So this is just a village,
I've
but
heard that.
sometimes it's a bazaar. Sometimes it gives you money. That's pretty neat.
I just didn't like that it only gave me 1 money.
You are offended at its paltry offerings.
Like, I wish, like it gave you money, like the same amount of money that the other money gave you. So I took a point down because I didn't like it.
All right, Becki's offended.
That would have just been cool.
Bazaar's fine. I mean, it costs 5, which is rough, but like, it's a village. It gives you a money. Like, that's pretty cool. I honestly think that this condition is not going to be met a lot of the time. But I don't know. Sometimes it will. You're gonna play your turn a little differently. It's fine. If set needs a village, it's great. A+ village. Village for 4. Sign me up. 7 out of 10. I don't have anything more to say. Do you have anything else to say about this card?
You can't go wrong with a village, right?
Sure. It's impossible.
Are there bad villages?
Oh yeah, there's one in this set. All right, landing party. It is a 4
Oh
cost
yes, I know which
action
one you're talking
duration.
about.
Yeah, we'll get to it. 4 cost action durations. +2 cards, +2 actions. Dang, for 4, that's so good. The next time the first card you play on a turn is a treasure, put this onto your deck afterwards. So it stays out until you have a, quote, crappy, end quote, turn. And then you get it onto your deck, which is actually quite nice. I gave this card 7 out of 10.
I gave it an 8.
Yeah. Has great synergy with Crown.
I don't know if I played with Crown.
It's a 5-cost action treasure. Lets you double an action card or a treasure card.
Yeah.
So it's like one of the few action treasures in the game.
Mhm.
Spell scroll. Anyway, I mean, this is sometimes you want something and you don't want a silver. It's great. And sometimes you get it back. It's great. I don't know if you can build a deck reliably around this without Crown or without punting turns every once in a while, which feels
And it's
really
a good
bad.
early card, I think, because if it's one of the first cards you gain, you're going to be able to draw that +2, and then your next turn, you're probably going to display treasures.
Yeah,
and you get that back early.
This is actually quite a good opener because it takes the chances of your other opening by missing the shuffle down to basically 0. So if that card trashes, man, this is great to open with. Like sometimes you'll open with just Village to go with your trasher to get that to happen, and this is just way better at doing that. And then you're gonna get it back more often because you're just gonna have crappy hands with coppers. So like
early on, and then you're going to be able to either gain the trash or just gain money to gain better cards because you're drawing that extra 2.
Yeah, and like this takes, it's funny because I'm talking about how great this orange card is to open with, but like this should prove to you that I'm not racist against orange cards. Like all of the problems that orange and tan cards have in the opening, like just doesn't have them. It even goes onto your deck. What more could you possibly want? What did I give it? 8 out of 10? 7 out of 10. Good times. Okay. Anything else about
No, I like it. Oh, also, it looks like they are having a giant party on the card. There's a lot of people on the card.
I'm sorry. The only thing that I can see on Landing Party is a Survivor Immunity Challenge. I'm sorry. I see nothing else.
I see that.
Yeah. All right. Next up is Map Maker. Talk to me about Map Maker.
Map Maker is 4 cross cards, action and a reaction. Look at the top 4 cards on your deck, put 2 in your hand, and discard the rest. When any player gains a victory card, you may play this from your hand.
Yeah, so I'm going to be gaining estates just so I can play my Map Makers all day. JK, LOL. I gave this a 7 out of 10.
I gave this an 8 out of 10.
Yeah. With no reaction, I think this is great. I mean, this is good card. Like, if this is the way you're drawing cards, you really don't need to thin all that much. You can definitely take a backseat. Like that's how powerful that is. The whole sifting effect. Like it's kind of like a stack of border guards, only this is just you drawing cards. This is how you're doing it this game. And then every once in a while you get to play it for free.
And it's a great one, especially at the end when people are starting to gain victory cards. It's a good way to kind of weed through things. And we played with it when we did our 3-person game.
Yeah.
And I don't think I realized until afterwards what it actually did with the reaction part of it. But I remember being at you.
Oh, nice.
I was like, oh, that's a good card.
Yeah, the reaction doesn't feel quite as good as like the black cat reaction because like you don't get to make angry cat noises. I don't know if there's any noise you really get to make with Map Maker, so there's a little bit of yeah, there's a little thematic discrepancy there.
Like Dora the Explorer or something. Isn't there a song about the map?
Hola, soy Dora.
Every time you play it.
Yeah, in terms of like songs from children's videos, I've had enough of those for 5 lifetimes, so I'm good, thanks. maybe we'll come up with something here. But it is really nice that when people are greening and decks tend to have a little more reliability issues, this gives you a little boost. So like this just kind of has a lot of things in a nice package with a nice bow on it. Like I was really tempted to give this an 8. I think 8 is a totally reasonable rating for it. This is a lot stronger than it looks. Like this is way better than just draw 2 for an action in a lot of
And
ways.
I think it's something I'd want to get later, not earlier. Especially with the victory card action part of it. But
Sure. I mean, this draws cards, so I would add it to my deck when I add draw to it. Which isn't usually right away.
but it doesn't have any extra actions.
Yeah, you got to be careful about that. But I don't know that the reaction ability is going to make me buy it later than I would just buy a card without that reaction ability. I mean, I want to have the terminal space for this. I want to be at the point where I want to be drawing cards. Maybe a little bit earlier in terms of like I would prioritize drawing versus thinning. I think this would make me want to move towards drawing slightly earlier because of the filtering ability, but that's kind of a small effect. That really depends on the trashing, because like trashing cards is just so stinking good, and this is not as good as just trashing the cards. Anything else to say about this, lady?
No, I think that's it.
All right, next up is Maroon. Maroon is a song by Taylor Swift from her most recent album. It is also a 4-cost action. It says trash a card from your hand, plus 2 cards per type it has, action, attack, etc. I gave Maroon an 8 out of 10.
And I gave Maroon a 4 out of 10.
Yeah, all right. This is, we've discussed this disagreement. Neither one of us has changed our rating after that discussion. This draws you 2 cards and trashes a card, and you can open with it. So I'm getting Masquerade vibes. Masquerade is extremely good. Later on, Masquerade falls off a little bit, where I mean, this also kind of does, but this gives you some weird kind of outs in terms of like if you find some multi-type card that you want to trash, you can get a little boost. Really, that doesn't seem very good unless there's ruins. But sure, I guess kind of. I mean, the trash is required. So Masquerade gets a little better later on, and it also costs 3 and is a better card than this. But man, it's hard for me to rate this low when you can draw 2 cards and trash and open with it. So 8 out of 10. I have a hard time going lower than 8 by very much.
See, and I'm of a, I get what you're saying, especially early on, but otherwise, like after a while, it doesn't, if you don't have things you want to trash, there's way better trashing cards in this. You're going to get the plus 2 per type it has, but most of the ones that have more than one type, you don't usually want to trash.
Right. I don't see this as something that gets more than 2 cards very much of the time. I don't think that's going to happen very often. Ooh, shelters. This likes to trash shelters. Woo!
Woo!
Yeah, the big difference is Masquerade can be draw because the trash is optional. This thing, it can be draw because you want to trash multi-type cards. Like that's just not nearly as good. But Masquerade is also really good, so like there's a lot of room to be worse than Masquerade and still be a good card. This probably could have cost 3, but I don't know. I still gave it an 8 out of 10. It costs 4. There's not much difference between the costs, so whatever. Also, the
are you
song
playing
by T
Dominion in the
Swift.
background?
No,
Because I can hear the ding of the thing.
the ding of the thing.
Like when there's like a chat thing in Dominion.
Yeah, so people keep joining this table that we were at.
Oh, I keep hearing it, and I'm like, are you just into like playing this game while we're like?
No, but I have Shuffle It open so I can look at the card images.
Yes. Okay. I got it. We're there.
The reason for that is because the high quality scans haven't been uploaded yet because people don't have physical copies of this set. So like the highest quality image I can get is what Shuffle It has right now. So that's what we're doing. I'm doing a podcast right now, okay?
Right. Yeah. So I was like, man, like that is some multitasking skills.
I'm also
there,
playing
Evan.
on my phone. I'm playing Tetris or whatever. No, that's not.
I was going to be impressed.
Yes, I have 3 games of Dominion on my other monitor, and definitely not notes for the show. Next up is Rope.
Rope.
I'll read
Oh,
Rope.
do you want me to read it?
I'll read Rope.
I can read it.
Rope is a 4-cost treasure duration. It gives you $1 and a buy, and then at the start of your next turn, you get a card, and you may trash a card from your hand. It does a lot of things. And those things are kind of okay. Yeah?
Mhm.
Having a card to start your next turn, that's pretty good. I'd rather trash now than at next turn, but what are you going to do? Buys. Those are good. You need those. I gave Rope 6 out of 10.
And I gave it a 5.
Yeah. This
And
does
the
a
reason
lot.
particularly I gave it a 5 is because I've played with it a few times, and I get so frustrated with that one measly dollar it gives you.
Yeah.
Especially when you start having loots in your hand. I'm like, this is bullshit.
If you asked me like 2 weeks ago, I would have given this card like a 7 or an 8. And the more I play with it, the more I was like, yeah, this is good, but like it's a duration, so you have to get 2 of them to get a buy every turn. The trashing is slow because it's a duration, and also it only trashes from your starting hand. So it's got that like rat catcher kind of thing where like you gotta draw the card in your opening hand that you want to trash, or else sometimes you may never do that before the game's over. So like it has some issues, but the thing is like this just does so many things. You're gonna buy it for one of those things in so many games. So like you can't give it that
perfectly
low of a
average
score.
card.
Yeah, so in terms of like it's kind of the opposite of all those narrow cards that could be very good. Like this is just always going to be kind of decent. And so I gave it a 6. Rope.
Rope. Oh, your favorite card is up next.
Yeah. All right. Next up is Swamp Shacks. You want to tell us about it?
Sure do. It is 2 actions, so it is a village, and you get 1 card per 3 cards you have in play. However, it is often hard to get 3 cards in play, but I think it works with duration cards, right?
Yes. Yes, duration cards are in play, so they synergize.
Oh,
with
and it's an
this.
action, a single lonely action worth 4.
Yeah, it costs 4. Yeah. So I gave this a 4 out of 10. This is a village, and I gave it 4 out of 10. There are things that can be villages that I've rated that low. This just gives you +2 actions, and I rated it a 4 out of 10. Like this is Necropolis. That's really what this card is. Like this is worse than Shantytown. And Shantytown, like Jake and I have gotten into arguments about this. Not all of them on the podcast. There have been more off the podcast. Like Shantytown is not a good card. It's a village. Sometimes you need it, but it is not a good card. This is worse than Shantytown. This is a new low in terms of like things that give you +2 actions and being a bad card. This is not good. Like yeah, it gives you 2 actions. Sometimes you need that. Great. If this is your only village, man, that sucks. I hope you got a lot of non-terminals that draw cards and that draw a lot of cards. I hope you got that. Otherwise, you're going to be real sad about this. You probably still are. It is really, you want 2 actions at the start of your turn, but you want to play this to get cards later on. Drawing cards later in your turn is just not nearly as useful. The cards on this are not nearly as good as you could ever think they are, and I already think they're bad. With all that said, I love the design of this card. It's crunchy. It's just very weak. Yeah, it's crunchy.
What do you mean by that?
It's difficult to make it work right.
Oh, okay.
Sometimes you you have other cards you're playing, lots of cantrips, whatever, and you can just you can play all those and then play your Swamp Shacks. You can draw like maybe 2 cards, and that's pretty decent. That's nice. glad you got that to work. I'm genuinely happy for you, and this was great.
But I agree. It can only draw under certain circumstances. It's not great to get early because you need to have those playable actions in hand to get them. And if you have cards with enough playable actions to get them, then you're probably having better cards in your hand anyways.
Right, yeah. This reminds me a lot of Magnet. That's a card that looks like it could be okay and theoretically has great potential and is just absolute garbage. And this isn't that bad. It's
It would
not
be
as
great with
expensive.
hireling.
Yeah, that sounds fantastic. Most duration cards, like, I'm in. Give it to me. But yeah, this is tough to make it work. And when it does work, the upside isn't quite as fantastic. So just be aware of that. Swamp Shacks, 4 out of 10. Next up is Tools.
Oh, this is another one we disagreed on.
Yeah, Tools is a 4-cost treasure. It says gain a copy of a card anyone has in play. I gave this a 7.
I gave this a 4, and I originally liked it when it came out.
Yeah.
I talked highly of it. Did
Yeah.
you know loot and tool are backwards?
Whoa! I did not. You saved that for the podcast. You just
I
blew
did.
my
I was
mind
holding
right
on to
here on the
that for you.
podcast. That's so good. Not quite as good as Charmin, but it's up there.
You know,
That's pretty good.
I try.
It's good.
Yeah, I liked it. And especially because there's a lot of duration cards here that will be great to kind of like pick up, but it just never worked for me the way I've wanted so far. So I'm currently giving it a 4 because I'm mad at it.
The whole duration dream, I think, is ridiculous. I don't think this is. I'm not gonna get this to gain a duration card my opponent has. I'm just gonna buy the duration card and then use this to gain my own duration card. Like that whole thing anyone has in play. Like, sure, put it on the card, but like that's not why you get this. That's not what you use this for. That's not really gonna. Oh, they got a possession, but no, like that. All the cards that are hard to get are not duration. Screw that. Maybe a prince? No, don't care. So anyway, this is a gainer. It doesn't cost an action, and it can gain big things. 7 out of 10. The downside is you don't get to do gain and play quite as easily, because this happens in your buy phase, so the big thing you gain, you're going to have to wait till next turn to play it. I don't have anything else to say about Tools. 7 out of 10.
Yeah, I just mad that it never lined up how I wanted to work. Like every time I've played it, it's been like a silver. You're like,
That's not what I wanted here. Yeah. All right, next up is Buried Treasure.
on to page 2 of my chicken scratch notes.
I have a spreadsheet in the other.
I have colorful notes.
Yeah.
Spoiler alert, you pause to see our future rating.
Oh no! All right, what does Buried Treasure do?
Ooh, buried treasure is at the start of your next turn, +1 buy and +3 monies. When you gain this, you can play it. And it is a 5-cost treasure duration card.
All right, I gave this a 7 out of 10.
Gave it a 6.
Well, this is, it's like a loot, kind of.
Yeah, I was just going to say.
This would be very bad if you couldn't play it when you gain it.
Mm-hmm.
But
Yeah,
guess
and
what?
that's what.
You can. It's plus buy, but you really need to get 2 of them. It has the duration issue there, but no, that's fine. You get a buy, so you can buy another one on your next turn. That's certainly fine, and it has the luxury of like you don't need to worry about like, oh, next shuffle I'm gonna need this buy, so I need to put the plus buy card deck into my deck now. And by next shuffle, you probably mean like next turn or two, but still,
Mhm.
you don't have to worry about that. All you have to worry about is like, oh, I'm gonna need plus buy next turn, and you can just put this in your deck now, just like you would any other plus buy card.
Mhm.
And then you can add the buried treasures that you want to get as many buys as you need. So like while it is expensive, you're gonna have to buy 2 of these to get a buy every turn. It makes up for some of that tempo lost by playing itself right away. So that is kind of nice. I tend, when I've built like this, I tend to find myself with too much money on the first time I get this, and then I play it on the next turn, and it's like, oh, I I should have maybe got this earlier, or built in a different way where I'm not maybe wasting so much money, or maybe that's just something that happens all the time with this card. I don't think I have the kind of experience, but anyway, I mean, it's non-terminal plus buy. It's just a little bit expensive, so 7 out of 10.
Yeah, and it's the game factor too that I think for me was I liked just because especially early on, you can kind of give yourself good hands for like the following round if you can kind of get it early.
Sure. I also like the fact that this is a nice alternative to like buying a duchy in the late game. If that duchy doesn't do anything, just get the buried treasure, man. Up your odds of getting a province next turn or threaten to double. Like it's pretty good. I like the end game play, end game shenanigans that this introduces. It's
Well, we
pretty
all
cool.
know I suck at endgame, so I don't even think about it.
I disagree.
I'm getting better.
I think you're better at end game than a lot of people that you would match up against on ladder. It's just you
It's
may
true.
not have that end game experience with
Actually,
me,
I'm
but
up.
whatever.
I've been ranking pretty well now. I've been doing pretty well on the rated games.
Yeah. You're welcome.
Thank you.
Wow, you actually kind of meant that. That was weird. All right.
I'm being polite during the podcast.
Oh, all right. We need a podcast more often. This is fun. Next up is Crew. Crew is a $5 action duration, gives you +3 cards, and says at the start of your next turn, put this onto your deck. So it uses the duration a little bit of a weird way because like you can still play this every turn. It's kind of like Highwaymen where you can play it every turn. You don't have to get 2 copies of this to have it do its thing. The duration part just is weird. It's not like other durations in that way. I gave Crew an 8 out of 10.
I think this is one we disagreed on because I gave it a 6. I originally gave it a 4 and then switched it to a 6.
Smithy is overpowered. Becki it's such a good card, and I would pay 5 for Smithy all day, and I frequently do. There's a lot of $5 Smithy cards out there. I think this is one of the best $5 Smithy cards there is. Highwayman is up there. This is up there. First of all, it draws you 3 cards. That's so good. Did I mention that's very good? But having this on top of your deck is fantastic because, like, you just play a village, and what's the next card you want to play? This. Guess what you just drew? All of these. So you probably want to. It's really nice to have some like 2 villages because like if you have like 3 or 4 of these, they're all on your deck. So adjust the way you build. If you don't have that reliability baked in, then maybe have an extra village or 2. But like you don't have to worry about finding this thing. It's there, right there on top of your deck. A+.
Yeah,
8 out of 10.
I didn't fully get what they meant by at the start of your next turn, put this onto your deck, but now I do.
Yeah, well, you don't have to do
so
that
it hangs
anymore.
out there as a duration card, and then once your turn starts, it gets top decked.
Yeah.
Okay.
It's a little weird, but Dominion is a computer game now. It's not a tabletop game anymore, so you don't have to worry about that.
It's true.
Yeah.
Also, the picture, it looks like they're posing for a photo, and it's really weird to me.
It does, yeah. Okay, that is okay. I'm glad you pointed that out, but also I'm not going to be able to unsee that. Like that, look at that guy on the end with like that blue thing on his hat on the right side.
Uh-huh.
God, that guy looks so awkward, and like this was drawn. I guess the artist did a good job of capturing the awkwardness of being in a group photo. So that's something.
You've got just like the couple heads that are just like barely picking up in the back that are just like, hey, I'm here too.
All right, that's funny. All right, I thank you. I'm gonna look at that in a funny way. Like that's just awkward. I like it. All right, I'm in. I approve. That's good. All right, next up is Cutthroat. What does Cutthroat do?
Each other player discards down to 3 cards in hands. The next time anyone gains a treasure costing 5 or more, you gain a loot. And it is a 5-cost action duration attack.
All right. So this thing is like a militia, only it does nothing for your current turn. And if you want to play it every turn, you're either gaining a treasure costing 5 or more to get it back, or you're going to have a lot of these, which is awkward. Why did
But
I give
loot.
this a 7?
I gave it a 6. Or 6, yeah, I gave it a 6.
This, I mean, if there's no draw, this can be a little nasty. Because you want draw, so you can draw all your loots and your treasures costing 5 or more. And also, you're getting militia'd. Why did I give this a 7? I'm changing my rating right now. I'm going in and changing it. This is a 6.
Oh, I'm glad you agree with me. See?
Oh,
Look at
snap!
this.
You gave it a 6. Well, you know what? What do you need me for? All right, I'm going to leave
I'm
the
sorry,
podcast.
this is
Becki,
my
you take it
podcast
from
now.
here. You take it from here. I'll just give you the password to everything you need to publish this thing. And then if I get hit by
I
a
have
bus,
no idea what I'm doing.
This is Becki's Dominion podcast. Hope you want to listen to that, because I'll be dead, or else I would, obviously. Anyone gaining a treasure costing 5 or more, man, it is unsettling to think that the amount of stop cards in my deck is not entirely up to me. It's probably still okay, but like, man, this really needs draw, and without draw, man, I kind of wonder how good it is. Might be okay. I don't know. Why'd I give this a 6? Maybe I should give it a 5. That's a joke.
I mean, the discard attack is always annoying.
I underrate militias. It's true.
And powerful, but annoying. So, you have that going for it. As far as how good of a card it is. I have like half of them on my like dislike list. I hate them. And also loot.
It's true, you like loots.
I do like loots.
I think this is one of the tougher ways to get loots. If
Mhm.
you want loots, it's hard to do it this way, but you gotta do what you gotta do, man.
But if somebody else gets a loot, then you get a loot with it.
I guess, if you have this in play, yeah. It's just weird to think of it that way. And also, like, I don't know if that's ever happened, but I've only actually bought this in a couple of games, so.
I haven't played with this one yet. I don't think.
It's harder to buy a treasure costing 5 or more if militia is happening, but then like eventually it stops because you're not going to keep buying these to militia them, and just that's not a thing. I'm not going to add like
And it
10
hangs
stock
out,
cards to my
yeah.
deck.
So it hangs out there until the 5 is purchased.
I'm not going to buy 5 of these so I can militia you on 5 turns and then add 5 cutthroats and 5 loots to my deck all at once. I'm not going to do that.
Yeah.
Seems kind of bad. All right,
maybe
next
maybe with good trashing, then you could just trash them all afterwards.
I guess. I mean, I still think you need like
Look,
big
if
draw.
it's the only way
I
to
think
gain
that's
a
the
loot.
thing you need. Yeah, that's a little sad if it's like the only plus buy. Ugh. I don't think I'm.
And then the 5 you gain are the ones without the plus buy, because that's just your luck.
Of course it is. So I'm thinking about this more. I don't think I like the design of this card. Why did you put these two things together? I don't think they make sense together. Like hunting grounds, +4 cards, and then cost 6, trash this, gain a duchy or 3 estates. Like that is poetry right there. This I don't get it.
Oh, for enlarge?
No, for cutthroat, I don't get it.
Oh.
Someone convince me that this is good design. I'm ready to crap all over it. All right, next up is enlarge. Enlarge is a 5-cost action duration. It says now and at the start of your next turn, trash a card from your hand and gain 1 costing up to 2 more. So it's remodel now and remodel at the start of your next turn.
Mm-hmm.
I have never played a game of Dominion where this was even in the kingdom. I gave it a 7
Same.
out of 10.
I also gave it a 7 out of 10 because it is a trash and a gain.
Remodel's good. Remodel twice seems fine. Now, I guess it's a little weird because the next turn is a required trash. So hope you have something you want to trash, LOL. That could be a little awkward. I still think it's fine. 7 out of 10. I don't have much more to say about that. I've never played with this card.
Yeah.
Sorry.
I mean, I think the +2 is an added benefit. So even if you do trash a card, you could just regain it back because
You can, but it's no longer in your hand. It's in your discard. So it can be a little awkward, but what are you going to do? You're going to green early, so you got provinces. And make use of the remodel. That's what you're going to do. All right. Next up is figurine, the worst card in the set. What does figurine do?
that's first of all, the image is a beautiful horse figurine. Putting that out there.
Do you really like the art?
No.
I didn't think you did.
It's like, it's just, when I think figurine, it's just not necessarily the first type of figurine I'd come to mind as a weird horse.
That movie about the moon mission and those women who were working
Hidden
for NASA,
figures?
hidden figurines. Yeah, that's what I think of.
It's not figurines.
That's what that movie's called, Hidden Figurines.
Hidden figures.
Yep, Hidden Figurines. All right, what does this card do?
It gives you 2 cards. So,
Whoa.
and you may discard an action card for +1 buy and $1. It is a 5-cost treasure. So,
Wah wah.
gotta love when you can get 2 +2 cards as a treasure.
Yeah. See, here's the problem. Plus cards on a treasure sucks. It's not good.
Well, then you can discard one of those action cards that you gained that you can't play. You get +buy and $1.
That sucks. It's not good. This is
And then
bad.
you don't have that action.
Why? And like, look, if you're just gonna draw a bunch of treasures, why am I paying $5 for 2 cards? That's so bad. That's putting lab in a money density deck. It's fine, I guess. But no, don't do that. This is not a good card. This is not a good card.
I agree with you.
It's a 3 out of 10. I think this is the only 3 that I gave up until I decided that maybe I wanted to give something
also
else
gave this one a 3.
Like, it's the only plus buy sometimes. You have to discard an action card. Nope, pass. How does this cost 5? This could cost 2. It would still be a... Oh,
I agree.
this is so bad. It's been a lot
So
of
do you
games.
hate this because it's 5? Like, if this cost 2, would you rate it higher?
Yes, because, I mean, it's better because it costs less. But also, like, I would hate it less because it doesn't think it's good enough to cost 5 anymore. This card has, like, the ego problems. Look at me, I cost 5. I'm gonna be good. You're gonna buy me when you have $5 and you can buy other good cards. Nope, fuck you. I'm trash.
I agree.
Someone tell me the hidden value in this figurine. The hidden figurine. Leave it in the comment section. Leave a comment in the comment section about hidden figurines. Ah, that card is so bad. What a pile of trash. All right, anyway, the next one is First Mate.
First Mate.
It's a $5 action. It says play any number of action cards with the same name from your hand, then draw until you have 6 cards in hand. Okay, I gave it a 5 out of 10.
I gave it a 6.
This is such a weird combination of things to do. I think that's really cool. I really like cards like this. Like, it's bad at 2 things, but then you can see, like, you can kind of imagine in your head, like, what if I combine this with a thing?
Like, yeah, it's like, what if you had, like, a lot of, like, villages or something like that, right? And you have them all in your hand, and you play that, and you play all of them, and then you also get to draw cards because you played a bunch of cards, too.
Like, you can kind of see the world where it's like, wow, First Mate is so amazing. You, like,
Or cards with money.
Yeah, like disappearing money cards, like a festival or like a mining road, which is coming up here. Like
or ones
you
that don't
play a
give you
bunch
extra
of
actions,
those.
but you can just play them all at once and just do that.
Yeah, and so this is a village, and then it draws, and like you can definitely imagine those situations, and you run into a lot of the problems that you run into when you do any kind of draw to X. It's like if I want to get value out of this draw, what do I have to do? I have to draw this with a bunch of other cards in my
Right.
deck. How do I do that? I gotta draw cards, but not using this because this doesn't get me there. This only draws me up to 6, and I had to make it not terminal somehow. So if I'm gonna have that other draw, then why do I need this, right? So
Hmm.
this is draw to X being bad, and that's cool. I mean, we can't all be the best at anything. I don't think that this is the enabler that draw to X needs. I think this requires other draw. I think this is a village. I think this is a card that can give you a lot of actions. If I have 6 goons, well, rip in peace goons. If I have 6 bridges, just play all 6 of them for 1 action. I think that's where this card is at its best.
Hmm. Yeah, I feel like this card just has potential to be amazing.
You can see it. You want to design a kingdom around it.
Right.
You want it to work so bad. And
Where it can have some really, really good synergy with certain other cards.
yeah, like non-terminal disappearing money,
Hmm.
patron, like it's you can see the fireworks, but it's just so hard to get it to work. So I only gave it a 5. But
Or like to like heavily curse somebody, you just like play all of them. And just get all the curses out at once.
right, because I already have 4 copies of the same cursing card in my deck, and there's still 4
Look,
curses left. That's
I'm
a thing that
excited about this
happens, and I
possibility.
somehow drew them in a game with cursing. Yes.
Yeah, look, the possibilities are endless.
You could enable it with Cage! Wah! Alright, moving on. Frigate.
Frygate.
Frygate. It's like a scandal that happened because of French fries. Um, that's actually not the worst analogy for this card that I think you could make. What does this card do?
It gives you $3, and until the start of your next turn, each time another player plays an action card, they discard down to 4 cards in hand afterwards, which sucks. It's $5, and it's an action, duration, and attack.
All right, what'd you give this card?
I just don't like it. What did I give this? 5. I gave it a 5.
I gave it a
What did
10
you
out
give
of
this
10.
card?
This is a 10 out of 10. This is the other 10 out of 10. Actually, there's another one. It's another 10 out of 10 in this set. Uh, I think allies. I don't think I gave anything in allies a 10 out of 10. So like, big deal. Okay, first thing I just want to say, the design of this card. I know that like it's an attack and people are complaining about it on the internet. I love this card. I love that it exists. I love that Dominion has an attack like this that big money does not give a about. And whole deck, when you draw your deck, you give all. I Dominion has needed this for so long. And like I understand people who are big money's boring. I want to play an engine. First of all, I don't know what the you're talking about. That E word, I have no idea what that means. But I do know that if I want to have a lot of cards in my hand and I want to play an action card to do it, can't do that with this thing. And
Because of
that
the Frygate controversy.
because of Frygate, of French Frygate. But you know what? You could use hidden figurines to get around it. You can draw your cards, hidden figurine,
Well, there you go.
and wreck that Frygate player. So anyway, for this card is so good for money. It gives you $3. That's so many dollars. And you don't you just like shove a few of these into the deck, and then like whenever you have one of these out, well, if they're not playing money, they're not gonna have a very good turn.
I mean, look, I gave it a 5 specifically for a reason because it is a 10. Um,
Oh, a 5 smiley face.
and I would be so annoyed playing with this one, especially in this one where there's like several different duration-y adding cards to your deck. And, like if you have a Siren, it does nothing because you're going to draw those cards. Then as soon as you play an action, you're going to have to discard half of them.
Yeah,
So you can't get around the discard attack.
You thought that Siren countered discard attacks, huh? Nope. You Frygate.
Right, and this is the first discard attack like this, right? Where
it
and
hits.
and it's each time another player plays an action card too. So if you draw your deck, it's not like you can get down to 4, leave one good draw card, and then have that go, because then it makes draw cards like not even function because you draw 2 and then discard.
It's like what Marquis does to you. Only you got to go all the way down to 4.
It's awful.
It's
the worst
brutal.
card.
It's absolutely brutal, and I
think
love that
it
this
might bring me to
exists.
tears in a game at some point.
It's really nasty, and I like that it's over the top nasty 10 out of 10. Like I'm just really glad that Dominion has this. And I know I may be one of the only people on the planet that thinks this way, but
I am adding it to my banned card list as we speak.
hey, Possession is not on my ban list, so you know. All right. Next up, Longship. Longship is a 5-cost action duration. It gives you +2 action, and at the start of your next turn, +2 cards. So it's like Lost City, only you don't get the cards till next turn. But at least you don't have to draw your opponent a card when you get it.
I gave it a 7.
I gave it a 6. I know this is not a valid comparison. It is really hard to get this out of my head that this is so much worse than Wharf. It makes me want to cry. But Wharf is ridiculous. So once you get over the fact that it's worse than Wharf, maybe it could still be a good card. It ain't. This just doesn't measure up. I mean, it's a village, and it does draw you some cards eventually, but like, you have to get 2 of these 5-cost cards to get that effect every turn. Man, it's really rough. I mean, this goes in decks, and you're kind of sad about it. The duration draw is something that's worth it. At least it's non-terminal. Man, this just isn't that fantastic. 6 out of 10.
Yeah,
Really.
I mean, I'm with you. I gave it an extra 7 just because I do like the extra draw, and I like that.
Yeah.
Until the stupid Frygate comes out.
Yeah. It's just, this is not nearly as good as what it looks. Rip in peace. All right, next up.
Mining Road.
Mining Road. It's a 5-cost action. It gives you an action, a buy, and $2. It says once this turn, when you gain a treasure, you may play it. So yeah, this first mate synergy, you play like 5 of these, and you draw back up to 6. That sounds great. That don't. So anyway, this gives you a buy. So it's silver with a buy at the very worst. Cool. These lines of text better be pretty good though. And well, I don't think they disappoint.
I gave it an 8.
Yeah.
For one specific reason.
Let's hear it.
Okay. You know those times when you hit 7 over and over and over again? You can buy a copper and hit 8.
Yeah, and that's so good. And like a lot of people gave me crap for rating Treasurer so high, and specifically because you can gain copper from the trash. It's a thing. Sometimes you got to do it, and it's definitely
you just
worth it.
need that copper.
Yeah, that's a real thing. And if you're not getting a copper, then you can think of this as like a discount on like whatever treasure you want to buy. So like if you're gonna get a silver with this, then you spend the buy, you spend $3 and you get 2 of it back, and this card gave you 2 to begin with. So like it's kind of like $1 and gain a silver.
Hmm.
Which, like, I don't know, that's not really the sexiest thing. Like, Ironworks does that, even though it doesn't give you an action, but you're always sad to play in Ironworks in that way. With a gold, it pays for itself a little bit less. You're spending 6, you're getting a total of 5, so like you're not really profiting, but like gold is a better card. Um, the ability is better than not having it. I think the best case for that ability, honestly, is copper.
Well, because you don't have to just get those regular treasures too. There's you can buy a figurine with it
Wow.
and
I
play
was
it
gonna say you could buy a tools with it. That seems pretty good, but I'm
because you play it immediately.
yeah, but then you have to
Or no,
buy
when
a
you gain a
figurine.
treasure.
So like, and also like when you gain a treasure, you're done playing treasures. So
Playing it,
whatever
yes.
cards you draw, even
Yeah,
if they're
yeah.
treasures, you can't play them. That's
But
even
I guess
worse.
there's a lot of treasures here that like you could set up to make it kind of worth it for things, right? Like Crucible or some other ones that
Yeah,
just
I
kind of
mean
like have
Crucible,
extra
that's a good
things.
one. Yeah.
And so like you can then trash a card from your hand to make things happen.
Yeah.
Like it has potential. In certain conditions, it has potential to be really powerful.
It has the potential to be kind of nice. I'm not going to use the words really powerful to describe it.
I am.
I think the best case is buying a copper for $1. That's how powerful I think it gets. Whatever powerful means. All right. Let's talk about pendant. What does pendant do?
I feel like because this is one of the ones that was like on the original one. I feel like I played this one like 8 times. Played with this one a bunch.
Yeah,
Like I was like, oh, this one's on this. I feel like I've seen it a
I
bunch.
think it was like day one of
Um,
previews. Yeah.
yeah. But pendant is uh gives you $1 per differently named treasure you have in play, and it is worth 5 and a treasure.
All right. I gave this a 7 out of 10.
Give it an 8, especially with all the loots.
It's good with those loots, isn't it? Look at that synergy. You get like 6 loots, and your pendants are better than platinums.
Hmm.
Yeah.
And then you get all this +5s with it. It can really, I like it.
Yeah. It definitely has some pretty ridiculous upside, especially with in-expansion synergies. At the very worst, if you're drawing a halfway decent amount, this is like a treasure worth $3 or $4, and it only costs
Mhm.
5, and that's good. And like that's kind of a worst case. It's hard to imagine this being like worse than gold. I mean, you get a bad draw and it can be, but like this is solid. Like
Mhm.
this is, can make you a lot of money, and money is good for stuff. If you can find it with plus buy, especially with those loots, yeah, it's pretty great. I gave it a 7.
Yeah.
This is loot adjacent, so you're like, yes,
Yes.
put it in my
I'm
face. I
looking.
want
I love
this.
loot.
Yeah. All right. We are nearing the end of the kingdom cards. Thanks for staying with us, listeners. These these episodes, they get long. All right, pickaxe is next. Pickaxe is a 5-cost treasure. Gives you $1. Says trash a card from your hand. Sweet. I'm in. If it costs 3 or more, gain a loot to your hand. I cannot tell you how many times I have forgotten that it gains a loot to your hand. That's so much better than just gaining a loot. To play it.
Yes. I may have to up my rating after thinking about that.
I gave pickaxe an 8.
I originally gave it a 6, and I actually can see it as an 8 because of the gaining to your hand part.
Yeah, I was thinking about giving it a 7, but I ended up with the 8. Um, Trashing a good card to your pickaxe is a lot less painful when you consider it like you can either trash a bad card and have it be gone, or you can upgrade whatever that
Good silver.
thing is into a loot. And if you think about it that way, this is pretty. I mean, this is good. Like you feel a lot better about trashing those good cards, especially because you can just like get 3 in a buy and gain your crappy card back if that's something you really, really wanted to do. Unless
No,
the
I
loot
agree.
doesn't give you a buy. In which
And
case,
it's trashing, just in general. You get it for the early trashing abilities.
right.
And then once you start getting good cards in your hand, you get loots.
Yeah, this is not that bad at trashing. I mean, it costs 5 and only trashes 1 card at once, but like it's not that bad. It's a lot of
But it doesn't make an
situations.
action.
This is something that you have in your deck because it's good enough to put in your deck with your first or second fiver. So like, then you're sitting around and you can get loots with it, and that's great. 8 out of 10, man.
I agree.
I don't have any complaints. I probably like this card more than what I should. All right, next up is Pilgrim.
This Pilgrim gives you 4 cards.
Mm-hmm.
Put a card from your hand onto your deck, and it is a 5-cost action.
Nice. I gave this an 8 out of 10.
And I gave this a 6.
This is so good, Becki. This is, I was going to say Crew is like the best $5 Smithy variant. No, it's this. This is incredible. Like, Courtyard is better than Smithy in a lot of cases. This thing, better than Hunting Grounds in a lot of cases. This is so good. Pilgrim is ridiculous. This is like the best Smithy, and Smithy's already overpowered. I thought about giving this a 9. Anyway.
I don't like when you have to top deck.
You should learn to like it. Like, you don't mind drawing an action dead. You can top deck it for next turn. The problem with Courtyard was it was hard to draw your deck with Courtyard.
Mm-hmm.
Because there's only 2 cards at once. But like, if you could, or you could draw your deck and have a Courtyard in it, you can seed your next hand with a good card to start with, and that's great. And this thing, you can draw the crap out of your deck with this card. So like, let me do that, and then top deck a thing.
I also have never played with this one, so.
Very good. Very good card. 8 out of 10. Maybe 9. All right. Next we have Quartermaster. It's a 5-cost action duration. It says at the start of each of your turns for the rest of the game, choose one. Stays out for the rest of the game. Either gain a card costing up to 4, setting it aside on the card, or put a card from this into your hand. I saw this and I thought, this is ridiculous. This is so powerful. And then I played some games with it. And holy crap, it was so good. I gave this a 9 out of 10.
Is this one that we talked about? Because I feel like we did. Maybe we didn't.
No, I don't think this has ever come up in any of our games.
I gave this one a 7 out of 10.
If this card just gave you a silver to your hand every other turn the rest of the game, it would be amazing. It would be so good. This is way better than that. You just buy a 5 and you play it once, and then it's so good. You can just get like 3 or 4 of these, and you're starting with like 2 cobblers, like every turn the rest of the game, as long as there's anything decent to gain, which there's 40 silvers in the pile. So like, I'm pretty happy to do that. Like, this is insane. How is this only 5? This should have been 6 or 7. This is so good.
Because of the $4 limit, I think.
This is what Prince always wanted to be. Prince is a fine card. I mean, this isn't a village, but it's draw. It's a gainer. Prince is like,
I mean, it's a gainer
8,
that doesn't waste space,
and you
but
have to line
you only
it up
gain every
and
other turn.
just buy this and you play it. And like, if that every other turn thing bothers you, just buy another one of these and play it. It's okay.
You can buy a bunch of estates and just let them sit there.
You could. It could gain you a victory point for the rest of the game. I wonder if there's a world where you just like have a couple of cards on this and pick the one you need. That seems bad to me, but
or if you have like ones that like lower the cost for the next turn, you can get yourself a duchy. Stick that one right on there.
It is hard to reduce the cost at the start of your turn, but like
There's
Canal comes to mind.
There's I forget what it is. It's one that like lowers everything by 1 for your following turn.
Bridge Troll, yeah, Bridge Troll and
That
Canal
one.
are the two that come to mind. I guess Captain could play a bridge too. So there's other ways to do it, but it's hard.
Mhm.
But it's also like, oh man, that seems extra sexy. I wasn't even thinking about this when I gave this a 9 out of 10 and thinking about giving it a 10. This seems nuts to me. This seems amazing in any deck you could possibly want to build. This seems so incredibly good. Think about how hard you work for like League of Bankers. You get it up to like 2 or 3 and you're
Mhm.
like, this is so broken. I worked so hard for this, but it was worth it. And then like you could just get 2 quartermasters and play 2 quartermasters. And now not only are you getting that money, but you're like gaining silvers on top of that. And
Oh,
that's
because
like
if you
the
play 2,
baseline.
you can gain and gain and gain and gain.
Yeah, and that's like the baseline for this card. This card will never ever be worse than that. And if there's anything like non-terminal or spammable, 4 or less, this just gets so much better. This seems totally nuts to me. It is insane to me that this costs 5. I wanted to give it a 10, but it doesn't quite fit my definition of a 10. I just don't see any game where you can get this and you don't get like 2 or 3 of them. This just seems unbelievable.
I'm with
Seems
you.
so
All right,
good.
I can see that.
All right. Next up is Silvermine. What does Silvermine do?
It gains a treasure costing less than this to your hand, and it costs 5, and it's a treasure. So basically, it mines silver.
Yeah. This is what Explorer always wanted to be, huh?
Um,
I gave this a 7.
I gave it a 6.
Yeah. This is like Explorer, only instead of sometimes getting you a gold instead of a silver, you just never have to spend an action on this. And it also has flexibility to gain like tools or gondola or whatever else. There's some
And it's being
fancy
to your
treasure.
hand, which I think is what pumps that up.
Yeah, it's pretty great. I I mean this is one of the better payload cards. It's
Hmm.
no pirate, but it's up there. It's hanging out with pirate. I don't have anything else to say about it though.
Yeah, just gains
Just
silver.
payload. I
Hmm.
love payload. All right, let's talk about the next one, Trickster. Trickster's a 5-cost action attack. Says each other player gains a curse. Once this turn, when you discard a treasure from play, you may set it aside, put it in your hand at end of turn. I gave this a 5 out of 10, and it's a cursing attack.
I give it an 8.
Yeah. I get real strong Sea Hag vibes from this. In terms of like what this actually does for you is so minimal. I'm First of all, I really like that this card exists. I love that junking attacks are getting really, really weak, and so that you want to push it off until later on in the game. Because like this thing, I mean, it costs 5, and when you play this, it really doesn't do anything for your turn. Next turn, it's kind of decent, and it doesn't have the duration
What do you mean
problem.
next turn?
It's good for your next turn because you
It's
get
good for your
to.
current turn too.
It doesn't do anything for this turn. Doesn't make you any money. Doesn't gain you any cards. Draw cards. It doesn't do any of that. It just gives out a purple.
Right, but you can still play that treasure that turn.
Right. It doesn't hurt your turn. It's not like you're
Okay.
havening it.
And then when you get yourselves one of those nice loots, you can just keep that going.
Cool. I mean, you don't. It doesn't even top deck it. Like you get it on top of your 5 cards for the next turn.
Or like King's Cache, or like I feel like there's a lot of good treasures, platinums. If you have those in your hand, and then you can just make sure to you get to play it and play it on your next turn.
Seems
Sign me
fine.
up.
Seems fine to me. Um, doesn't make you any money on that turn. So I'm that's the comparison to Sea Hag. That's why I made the comparison. I mean, obviously the ability is better than nothing, which Sea Hag does for you. Did for you. Rest in peace. I miss you, Sea Hag. Except you're kind of right here, but not really. You know what I mean?
Are you calling me a hag?
Yes, in kind of a weird, indirect way.
Thanks, appreciate it.
You can just call me a mastermind in a weird, indirect way.
No, thank you. Plus, I like cursing. I hate curses. I like cursing.
Yeah. Got any curses you want to...
No, I'm good.
Oh,
I don't know what my bleep sound is going to be yet.
Me neither. But you, the listener, have already heard it a couple times. This is like the most exciting part about being on the podcast. There's been at least one person that wants to be on the podcast just so they can swear and get a sound. Like, it's everything I dreamed of when I started a podcast.
You asked me what I wanted my sound to be. I'm like, we'll see. Surprise me.
Oh, you don't want to tell me that. Anyway, I don't think this card is all that powerful. I mean, it's still junking, so like, kind of got to do it, and it helps you out a little bit with the draw, but like, it doesn't make you more reliable necessarily. I mean, it kind of does a little bit, but not nearly as much as it would be if you were like scheming something, or top decking a deck control card. Like, it's a treasure, so it's got to be payload. So I don't know. That's my thoughts on Trickster. I love the fact that I think this is weak. 5 out of 10 junking attack. Welcome to the future.
Welcome.
And this apparently is close enough to being loot that, or interacting with loot that you're like, yes!
There are maybe a few numbers where I was just like, I don't know.
What do you mean? Like this next card, Wealthy Village?
Oh, I was definitely not. I am all in on what I rated Wealthy Village.
All right, what does Wealthy Village do?
It is a village. It gives you 1 card and 2 actions. And when you gain this, if you have at least 3 differently named treasures in play, you gain a loot. And it's a 5-cost action card.
Nice. What did you rate this card? Did it feel good to give it a 10?
It felt so good.
Yeah. I gave this an 8. Why did you give it a 10, Becki?
Because of loot. And it's a fun one. I think it's a fun one of just like trying to, because you have to have the 3 differently named treasures in play. So like in order to get it, you have to kind of like figure out, which is probably not a reason it should be 10, but I like kind of puzzling out the game and trying to make things set up, and I get really happy when it actually works. And
this is a perfect example of like someone rating a card really high because they like the card.
Yes. Oh, absolutely.
So whenever
you just
you're reading,
rate them. You didn't tell me any subjective reason. You just said rate.
And I could tell you, and you wouldn't listen to me anyway, right? So just when you're reading the data, just keep in mind that a lot of people do this. I do it. I know I do it. Maybe not to the extent that others do, but like I'm a human being, okay? It happens. I think a neat comparison for this card to make is Border Village. Border Village is, I want a 5-er, but oops, I hit 6. I guess I'll get a village. This card is, I want to loot. Oops, I guess I get a village with it, as long as I meet the requirement. And like, sure, if I want to add payload to my deck, yes, give me a village with it. I would love that. And
then once you get that village, you can use it to get more wealthy villages.
Right, it's definitely getting your second and third loot after the first one is much easier. I found myself thinking like, well, I do want to get loots. I mean, it's good payload, and maybe I need that plus buy. But I didn't really want to put a gold in my deck, but I guess, sure, why not? I mean, I'll do it because it seems like the best way to build, and then once you get that first one, you can trash the copper you were holding on to, and now you've got a whole bunch of really good payload, and you realize how good gold actually is, and then you get a doubloons, and you're like, oh god, I hate gold, but you're still kind of okay with it, because you have like 3 more villages than what you actually need, so you can just shove a couple extra draw cards in your deck, or map makers.
It's like you're in my mind when I'm playing it.
Yeah, it's great. 8 out of 10.
10 out of 10.
Nice. All right, 2 more kingdom cards. We have Sack of Loot. It's a $6 treasure. It gives you $1 and a buy.
And it's a fun name.
Yes, and also you gain
Sack
a
of
loot. You also gain a loot.
It's the easiest, one of the easiest ways to gain a loot.
Yeah, and it just gives you the plus buy directly too, which I appreciate on a deep level. I'm really glad it gives you the plus buy. This I think is up there with pirate in terms of like gaining payload. I gave it a 6 out of 10.
I gave
Pirate
it an 8.
Pirate costs 5 and, you know, gives you a little bit more flexibility and requires a little less draw to get it going. So Pirate definitely has stuff on Saga, but like there's just plus buy baked right in along with additional other stuff. So like bigger payload, just you gotta put in some more commitment with the draw. And I mean, I think it's fine. 6 out of 10, 8 out of 10. I really don't think there's much disagreement here. I think this is one of the easier ways to gain loot.
Yep.
All right. Last kingdom card. What do we got?
The King's Cash. Hey.
You really like saying it that way. It's
The King's Cash.
Yeah.
Right? Is that how you pronounce that word?
yeah, it's pronounced cash, but
Okay.
I've heard so many people pronounce it cache, and you know, language is such that will be
Yeah.
fine.
But
I don't
it
mind.
makes you it lets you play a treasure from your hand 3 times. And it costs 7.
Yeah. 7 cost treasure. So it's King's Court, but for treasures. I gave King's Court a 10 out of 10. What'd you give King's Cash?
A 10 out of 10.
Nice!
What did you give King's Cash? King's Cash.
I gave it an 8 out of 10.
So why the 2 points off?
So, first of all, King's Court gets a 10 out of 10, and I know there are people out there that think that it should be a 9. And, you know, for them, I don't think it's a big disagreement. 10 and 9, whatever. It's not the most solid 10 out of 10 I've ever given in my life. So I just want to preface with that. King's Court, it's very common for King's Court to just be village and draw and turn everything in your deck up to 11. This is maybe kind of sort of draw, but not really. It's not a village because it's just all payload, but it can just give you an insane amount of payload. And with no other treasures, you know, this is just a treasure worth 6 if you play it on a gold. That's freaking fantastic, right? That's a great baseline. But that's not the kind of thing that warps the entire game around it, because in order for that to be something you really want to go for, you're going to need to have some way to draw the King's Cash with a gold and then have some plus buy to take advantage of it. And that's not here on this card. So it's not 10
It
out of
is
10
if you play
material
it with
for
the
me.
loot.
King's Cashing a loot. We're talking now. I'm interested. My eyebrows have been raised.
You get 3 buys.
Unless you don't.
Unless you don't.
Yeah.
You can play it with an endless chalice and get always 3 buys and 3 coins each turn.
You really like that, don't you?
I was so proud of myself when I discovered that one.
Yeah.
The computer had no idea what was coming.
Yeah.
All that stuff sounds shocked.
All that stuff sounds great. I want to do it. I mean, it's not on this card. You need support to make it happen. But like, yes, sign me up. Shove it in my face. I want that.
Yeah.
This is big fat payload. Fat spelled with a P, capital H. All right. So there are traits, but we should do the events next, because we're doing ratings and stuff. We'll do the events. There's only like what 10 or 15 of these. So, dear listener, there's light at the end of the tunnel. And then there are traits in the set which I think are really cool, but we'll do it later. So the first event is Bury, B-U-R-Y, Bury. It's a 1 cost event, gives you plus a buy, so it doesn't mean cost a buy. It says put any card from your discard pile on the top of your deck. I gave this an 8.
And I wrote this on here, so I have to look at what I gave it. I gave it a 7.
All right. I think the analogy here is like Save's evil twin. Bury doesn't always work. If there's nothing in your discard pile. If you have multiple buys, you can buy something and then bury. to bottom deck it, which is not as good as top decking or having it next turn, but it didn't have to come from your hand. You can also do this multiple times. Bury as a turn 2 play in your opener can usually be quite good. If you have $1 to spare, or if you can open with a card you really want on turn 1, burying at turn 2, even if you don't buy anything, can often be worth it, just to make sure that, especially if it's one of those things that really wants to be drawn on turn 3, it can often be worth it. Otherwise, it's just, I have an extra $1, can I make use of this? And over half the time, I think you can. And the fact that it's an event, it really benefits from being an event. You don't have to put a card in your deck and plan for this. It's just a nice situational thing that tends to come up a pretty good amount of the time.
Yeah, and I think it's good of just kind of, like you said, like when you have that extra $1, and it's like, oh, I want to get this, and you know how much I love spending all the money, and now I can spend all my money.
In Dominion, you often want to spend all your money every turn.
Mhm.
It's very
And
good
it makes it satisfying getting that lower cost card, because then you can just bury stuff too, and
right, and you haven't wasted anything.
Exactly.
It's like when you gamble with your last 2 money and you get a copper and you're like, I wasted $1. I can't gamble again. I can't feed my addiction. Anyway, that's not really the same thing at all. Next event, avoid. What does avoid do?
Let me see what I rated that one. Okay. Avoid is the next time you shuffle this turn, pick up to 3 cards to put in your discard pile. And it's a +5.
Right, and it costs 2.
It costs 2. I gave it a 5 because it only has to, it's the next time you shuffle this turn. And so I feel like it has to only, it can only works when it lines up. And
Yeah, the main thing going against this card is the fact that you need to shuffle on this turn and also have 2 extra dollars to spend on
yeah,
this. And that doesn't happen very often. I think that's a lot more situational than the berry would be. On the other hand, this I think has a much bigger upside. Picking up to 3 cards is just a big deal no matter what your deck is like. If you're drawing your deck every turn, you're shuffling every turn, it can frequently be worth it. I mean, I spend $2 on a traveling fair so I can top deck reliable cards, and then I put way more deck control in my deck than I even need to sometimes, just so I can kick off every turn if the deck control is not great. This seems more efficient than that, and I'm happy to do that a lot of the time. So even though it is more situational, I mean, it's an event. Events can be situational and still be quite good. Um, and rating it highly in my brain encourages me to be constantly thinking about this kind of stuff, which is how you win games. When you start to play good,
I
think
will
about.
probably ignore this card pretty much. I will avoid it. I will avoid it pretty much every time it's out.
Yeah, like when you start thinking about shuffles and like really start to do stuff like this to optimize, it just feels like you get lucky all the time. When really you're just good. You make your own shuffle luck. I
I
sounded.
have never heard you say that to me before, ever.
Yeah, that's not something you say when you win, so I don't say it to you very often.
You say it to me all the time.
All right. That was okay. Deliver is the next event. It's a
What?
2-cost event. Gives you plus a buy. And this turn, each time you gain a card, set it aside and put it in your hand at end of turn. I gave this an 8.
And I gave it a 7.
So this is like, remember that traveling fair comparison? This is like that, only you don't get an additional buy, but you only have to buy it like once, and you don't. It doesn't cost you cards at the start of your next turn, like T-Fair does when it top decks it. You just get them into your hand in addition to whatever you had. So unless you're getting cutthroated, you're pretty happy about it. 8 out of 10.
7 out of 10.
This is really good, and I think openings matter. Like there's 2 costs that you would deliver on turn 1 with a 4/3. I think there's a lot of them. Search, man, I would even deliver a search if it meant I could hit 5 on turn 2. and that's search. Ugh.
No, yeah, it has some fun upsides.
That upside, so
And
upsidey.
I did well, and it's just like just like all of these cards or a lot of these cards are just so low cost too. It's like that again, like when you have that extra $2, let's
Oh yeah.
Might as well.
Oh yeah. So good. And it yeah, it works on action strategies, even victory cards. So you can which does matter, because if you can make that victory card miss the shuffle and you have that
Mhm.
money laying around anyway, like it's fine. Might as well.
Yeah.
Next up is Peril.
It's a 2-cost card. You may trash an action card from your hand to gain a loot.
Yeah, what'd you rate this?
What did I rate this?
You gave it a 7,
7.
and I
I
gave
gave
it
it
a
a 7.
5. Imagine
Mhm.
that. I just want to point out, look at the wording on this card. Can't get around trashing the action card, huh?
No, you
Imagine if there
may
was some
trash.
wording to make sure that you actually trash an action card to do the thing. Imagine that. Anyway, yeah, I gave this a 5. I
I'll
think
give
if
it.
loot is the only plus buy, I would consider this. Otherwise, this seems like it's costs a lot.
Get like you just get like a $2 one you don't like. Again, it's ways to get loots early. You get a $2 card you don't really like, then peril it, and now you have a loot.
Cool. I can see
I'm playing
like
that.
my chapel that I'm done with. Yeah, sure. Turn it into a loot. I'm in.
Lurker, I hate that one. Lurker's just there for me to trash it.
Okay, yeah, that's all Lurker's good for. Yep. All right. uh, I don't think this. I think the theme is great, and that's about it. All right. Next up is Rush. It's a 2-cost event. Gives you a buy. It says next time you gain an action this turn, play it. I thought innovation. Other people think that's good. I don't. It just never seems to be good at all. And I think Rush is the same way. What are you gonna play when you're already buying cards that's gonna make any difference? Like
Trash
maybe,
card?
I guess. Why do I not already have that in my deck?
If you get it early, you can trash cards
Like this,
quickly.
I can see in theory, like, oh well, if that card gives you money, then it helps to pay the cost of Rush. So if I have like a, I don't know, like a Fortune Hunter or something, and I want to Rush and then Fortune Hunter, then I can like make $1 kind of, if I manage to find a treasure with it. That it has that on innovation. Like innovation is better than, but like I need multiple buys to make use of that money.
Duration cards.
Yeah, duration cards.
That you can set up for especially like at end game, you can set up for draw and stuff at your deck's hand.
Yeah, you can do that instead of buying a duchy. You can do that. Like all of these things are valid things you can do, and you can list off a lot of things you can do with innovation,
Or when
and
you have 7, you can buy duchy and rush something.
you can rush that duchy. Yeah.
Oh, that's right. That wouldn't work out right. But yes.
It's just when I play actual games of Dominion, it just never seems to come up, and so in my mind, it's so narrow. I gave it a 4 out of 10. I'm not
Again, it has
denying
potential.
that this has use, but I'm just saying it doesn't ever happen. That's what I'm saying. All right, next up is Foray.
Foray is a $3 event. And you discard 3 cards, revealing them. If they have 3 different names, you gain a loot.
Nice. I am mad at this card.
And why?
This should say discard 3 cards from your hand, revealing them. Because when I read this card, I thought it was from your deck. And, obviously, it's not technically correct the way I read it, but I'm not the only one to make that mistake. And I'm just mad that I wasn't active enough as a playtester to be like, hey, you really need to put this on the card. I think it's worth it. It easily could have fit. I know it could have. And I think it should have been there. In any case, this is a fine way to gain a loot for sure. You have to hold 3 cards back, but sometimes that's not a big deal to do. And then it's a 3-cost loot. Seems fine. I think oftentimes that's kind of a big commitment, but maybe could be worth doing. I gave this a 5 out of 10.
Gave it a 7.
Yeah.
Loot.
Loot. All right, next up is Launch. Launch is a 3-cost event. Says once per turn, return to your action phase, +1 card, +1 action, +1 buy. I don't know if you know this, but returning to your action phase is overpowered. 10 out of 10.
I also gave this one a 10.
Also, card action and this doesn't even cost a buy. Holy crap. I mean, I don't want to be Villa going back to my action phase like 10 times a turn. I mean, that's not a thing that ever happens. Cavalry is a different kind of thing that is more narrow in how it can benefit you by going back to your action phase, so it didn't get the 10 out of 10. This is nuts. Absolutely nuts.
Like, I could see when this is on the thing every turn.
Yeah.
You just set yourself up for another turn. Like,
That's seems likely. Like this is totally nuts. You over terminal, you put tons of draw in your deck, you don't even care. Just launch. Whatever.
yep,
Totally
launch
nuts.
time.
This is so good. It's an event. I don't even have to put it into my deck. I mean we're like
so it'll hit every time.
we're like 2.5 hours into this, so I'm not gonna gush for much longer, but like ridiculous. Next up is Mirror.
It is a 3-cost event. Gives you 1 buy, and the next time you gain an action card this turn, you gain a copy of it.
All right, I gave this a 9 out of 10.
What did I give it?
You gave it a 7 out of 10.
Yeah.
This is like what Stonemason really wants to be. Stonemason lets you pay 2 more to get an extra copy of the thing you wanted, but you also have to gain this crappy Stonemason. Stonemason also gives you the flexibility to gain 2 differently named things. This costs you an extra $1, doesn't cost you a buy, takes away the flexibility, and you don't have to put that Stonemason into your deck. That seems very good. I gave it a 9 out of 10. Do you have anything to say about this before I start whining?
I was going to set you up for it.
Okay.
But so I'll get mine going. So the reason that I rated it lower is just because it costs 3. So it's going to be like it's harder to kind of double get some things just because of the cost. So you're going to have to get good cards then double it.
Mm-hmm.
I just don't love that.
The other comparison I wanted to make was Changeling. Like Changeling sucks. And it should have been this. Changeling is a $3 copy of some other good card you have.
Mm-hmm.
But you don't get to play it next turn and you have to draw it with that card. And those matter a lot. This thing, you just need to have $3 when you get it and you get another one.
Mm-hmm.
That's way better.
But I wanted to talk about the artwork. What do you think about the artwork, Adam?
I am offended at this artwork. This is probably, I remember Wandering Winder was going on about Nomad's artwork, and like he can complain about that artwork all he wants because I am mad at that card for existential reasons. The artwork on, I think this is the worst art in the game. Like I've had complaints about artwork. This is just horrible. Like it's the card is called Mirror. Okay, and the artwork is of like a town. There's some people like building the roof, and then there's a little road, and then there's another house, and there's this horse standing there, and there's a couple people standing around. There's no fucking mirror in this. This has nothing to do with a mirror. What artist notes were given? Did Donald X be like, hey, draw a mirror for me, and then the artist came back with this bullshit garbage trash?
He like looked in a mirror and was like, okay, it's backwards. You just can't tell.
I don't understand. Who did something got past QA on this one? Like, this is, how did this happen? This doesn't make any sense at all. I can understand, like, oh, the card is Mastermind and you put my face on it. Like, look, I get that. I get it. But this, I just don't understand it. What does this have to do with Mirror? Leave a comment in the comments section. I don't get it. And I'm offended. I could have drawn a really shitty drawing of like a hand mirror on a table and put it here, and that would be better than this garbage, trash, dumpster fire. Ah.
So anyways, the next card is Prepare.
Look, it's someone preparing something. Art.
And it's shiny.
This is
it's
how
a mirror.
you art.
That is more of a mirror than the other mirror.
Thank you. God.
Prepare is a 3-cost event.
Butt crack.
Set aside your hand face up. At the start of your next turn, play those actions and treasures in any order, then discard the rest.
Yeah, I give this a 5 out of 10.
And I gave it
an 8.
8. Why did I give it an 8?
I was about to ask you the same thing.
Because it gives you extra turns, right?
No.
Like at the start of your turn, you get those plus what you drew, right?
Mm-hmm. Right. Extra cards,
But
not extra turns.
Okay. But you play those actions and treasures in any order, then discard the rest,
Uh-huh.
and then you have your turn, correct?
Yeah.
Where figurines comes in.
Okay, so this costs a buy. That matters. So for 3 and a buy, you can just take every stop card in your deck that you drew one time, and oh wait, this isn't even that good. I was gonna say you could just keep it in your hand and not have to redraw it, but it gets discarded. So like, it's good, but it's not even that good to spend 3 and a buy on it. I mean, it's a village. It's a village. You can just like, you know what? I could see giving this a 6, because like, what if you just like shove a bunch of terminals in your deck and like you don't even care about it. You can just prepare it. I'm just gonna get all of the deck control. And then I'm gonna have like 6 bridges in my deck that I can't play, but I can prepare them. And then next turn, I could see it. I'm changing my rating right now. I'm changing it to a 6. I think it
Yeah,
just costs a lot.
I like the idea of the actions and treasures, and you don't have to worry about extra actions. And if you have it set up right, especially kind of again at that end game where you just don't have a ton, but you have some like semi-decent stuff, but you have a ton of like estates or whatever, not only do you get to hold those to potentially have them miss a shuffle, but because you hold them until the next turn, but you can then play like draw cards and things like that, and then still have your turn.
Yeah, there's upside there. I just think it costs a lot. That's the main reason I'm throwing the rating into the toilet and then apparently giving it a 6 anyway.
Okay.
At least the art is better than Mirror. Jesus. All right, next up is Scrounge. It's a 3-cost event. Choose one. Trash a card from your hand or gain an estate from the trash. And if you did, gain a card costing up to 5. So there will probably be estates in the trash, because you're probably going to open with at least one of these to trash an estate. At least. And I think opening with 2 of them is not crazy sometimes. So it's an 8 out of 10. I think without the gainy bits, it would probably be like a 7 or an 8.
Did I give it?
You also gave it an 8.
I'll give it an 8. Yeah.
Also, this just means in the end game that duchies give you 4 points and they only cost $3. And they also give you, 2 junk cards, but that matters. If you really need to hit 5, you can do it with this. I don't know how I feel about gaining things other than duchies with Scrounge. It's hard for me to imagine where that's good, but I don't know.
Like an end game or early?
Uh, anything other than a duchy, really, at any point.
Because you can gain like attack cards and stuff
You
with
could
it.
gain a buried treasure. Play it.
There you go.
There you go. You could do that. I think. I mean, as a trasher, it feels kind of bad.
You can
To
gain a figurine.
be your only trashing. I will not be doing that. But I mean, at least this will trash estates, unlike Bonfire. And you know, with Bonfire, you're gonna spend 2 or 3 turns trashing those coppers, but then you don't have them. And this one is a lot better in the opening. Trashing estates is so much better. So I really think you're just gonna be doing this like every game. So yeah, I give it an 8 out of 10.
Okay.
All right. Next up is Journey.
Journey is a 4-cost event. Once per turn, if the previous turn wasn't yours, you don't discard cards from play and clean up this turn and take an extra turn after this one.
I think this this event is cool. It is something that doesn't work if you're drawing your deck. Doesn't work very well if you're drawing your deck. Although it certainly has its uses if you're drawing your deck. Because for 4 and a buy, just being able to have another turn where you play the cards you bought can still be very good.
Mhm.
You can just gain a bunch of payload and like a village. Anyway, I gave it a 7 out of 10.
I also gave it a 7 out of 10.
I think, man, this is like a lot of, you know, those mission turns that you take in the early part of the game when it's like, oh, I didn't draw my trasher on turn 3. I know my turn 4 I'm probably gonna draw it, and I'm
Yeah.
not gonna buy any cards, so let me just mission. It's like
Mhm.
a free turn, and it's better than putting something in my deck right now. Journey is like that, only I think it's a little better. You can mess with shuffles doing this, or you can just like skip a bad turn where you only had 4. A lot of
Mhm.
times this is just going to be better than throwing a silver in your deck.
I agree.
I think this has a lot of applications in the early game. I think no matter how often people are doing this, they should be doing it more. Maybe I should be giving this more than a 7. I'm going to give it an 8. I'm changing it right now. I'm doing it. Boom. I gave it an 8. Journey, 8 out of 10. You heard it here first.
Next is Maelstrom.
All right.
Maelstrom.
Maelstrom is a 4-cost event. Trash 3 cards from your hand. Each other player with 5 or more cards in hand trashes one of them. What a cool event! It's so cool! And it's so thematic, and the artwork. Oh, look at that artwork. It's actually a Maelstrom! Holy sh! I think this is really cool. I think, I mean, 4 money to trash 3 cards from hand with any draw at all. Super great. The little benefit for your opponent, or maybe it's not a benefit. Ooh, so cool. I gave it a 6 out of 10. I love the design of this.
I gave it an 8 out of 10 because trashing 3 cards early is nice.
Yeah, my issue is it's hard to hit 4 and still have cards you want to trash.
Oh yeah, that's fair.
If you open with this, you really want to be trashing more than 1 card. Otherwise, it helps your opponent
Opponent trash
just
too.
as much as you. So you really need draw to make use of this. And that's fine. I mean, there's a lot of trashers that want you to draw cards to make use of them. And this is one of them. And it's an event, so it's kind of better than those, TBH. Actually, most of them are either events or cemetery.
Yeah.
So, well, in any case, it's viable. It can trash cards. You can get an advantage out of it. And cool design, cool theme, A+. 6 out of 10, though.
Yeah. I can go down to 7. Since you can't trash it, use it early. I'll take that down.
Nice. All right. Next up, we're almost done. Next up is looting.
Looting.
Looting, whatever, I'll read it. It's a 6-cost event. It says gain a loot.
I wasn't sure if you were going to or not. And I was like, I saw your mouth open, and so I was like,
We have this planned out. We definitely do.
we're definitely playing this out. Yeah, it's a game of loot.
So how do you feel about loot?
I don't like them very much.
Dang it. Me neither. Okay, I give this a 7 out of 10.
I think I gave it an 8.
I would give gold like maybe a 5 out of 10.
This is basically, it's a gold, but it's a loot gold.
Yeah. I give gold a 5 out of 10. You heard it here on Making Luck, a Dominion podcast. I don't have anything else to say about it though.
I mean, it's $6, so instead of getting gold, you get a loot.
Yeah. Nice. All right. Invasion. It's a 10 cost event. You may play an attack from your hand, gain a duchy, gain an action onto your deck, gain a loot, play it. What the
A lot of words.
There's so many things, and they don't seem to have much to do with each other than theme. Right?
Oh, because it's an invasion.
Like, yeah, like they thematically.
So it's like you attack them first, then you steal their
you
stuff.
take their land, and then you put
And
their
you get
people
loot.
to work as slaves, and then you take their stuff.
I
Like
like it
thematically,
even more now.
thematically, I get it, but like, why? When am I ever going to do all of that stuff and have it be good? That's a question. So like, gain a loot and play it. A lot of times you can kind of squint and say, oh, well, this only really costs you 7. And a lot of times it doesn't cost you a buy, except when it does, because f you. And then, like, gain an action onto your deck. Well, that seems generically useful, right? Just stick a village on there, or wherever, it's fine. But then, like, gain a duchy. I have $10 and I'm thinking about a duchy? Okay, this is a little more sus. And then you may play an attack from your hand. Well, I mean, I just had an action phase. So when am I gonna like, oh, I have this attack in my hand that I can't play? It starts to get a little more tenuous.
Okay, but I like the theming.
This just seems like it costs
But
too
yes,
much.
I agree. It does a lot, and I like again, it's like sometimes you can see potential with it, but
I can come up with a scenario where like all of these things are good. And maybe in a game of Dominion, like 2, maybe 3 of them will happen at the same time, and I'll have 10, and I
you
will
get one where like each time you gain a card, you get something, some of those cards.
and when that happens, I will go up to my son's room and I will wake him up to tell him about it. Like I will
Look.
invade his room so that he knows. And he's gonna be like, Dad, what the fuck? You
Yes, that one.
I gave this a 5 out of 10. I have had one game where it was like pretty good. If loot's the only plus buy, you're probably gonna do this. So there you go.
I gave it an 8, but you're right that it is too expensive, so I will knock that down to a 6.
Okay, cool. Because my notes say you had it as a 7. All right, it's a 6 now. All right, one more.
It is Prosper. It is a 10 cost event. You gain a loot plus any number of differently named treasures. You can junk up your hand with those treasures.
You can get so much payload with this.
So much payload.
And some of it might have a buy.
Like, could you just imagine like a hand, like, because especially with this, because there's a lot of treasure cards in it, where you just have like half of the cards are treasures and you just gain a bunch of treasures.
Like, I'm thinking about the situation where it's like, I can definitely see like, I have $10. I still want more payload, and it seems like if I have $10 to spend on this and I want more payload, man, I'd really like a buy with it. And I'm just thinking about 1/3 of the time where you just don't get that buy.
Mm-hmm.
And I mean, I'm going back to think about all of these cards we've talked about, and thinking about like, oh well, yeah, the loot is the only plus buy, but like 1/3 of the time, you don't
Yeah,
get
you're
it.
gonna get that gamble, and you're not gonna get your plus buy.
Why does Dominion need that? It ruins so many cards. It doesn't ruin them,
Well,
but
I
it
guess
just
it makes loot slightly less powerful because you have that option, especially when you're using it for some of that. It kind of
I
takes
don't
it down a little bit.
I don't think loot needed to be slightly less powerful. I think loot could be a little more consistent in getting you plus buy, and it would still be fine.
I agree. I'm just trying to think of what they were thinking, and that's the only thing I can think of.
I know I would have spoken out against this. And, I probably wouldn't have been listened to, but at least I will have known that I spoke out. Because, like, maybe 1 in 10 times I do get listened to. And, like, I'm not the one that makes the decisions. I'm
We
just
might
some
actually
guy.
have
But
people still here listening to us now,
hey,
3 hours in.
if you're here, if you're still here listening, leave a comment in the comment section. I wanna know, and we will get comments. It'll happen. I gave looting a 7, but I also gave Prosper a 7 out of 10.
I gave Prosper, I think originally gave it a 10. I think I knocked it down a notch
Oh man, 10 out
to
of 10,
9
so good.
because loot and money. And I was like, I was hypothetically thinking with like platinum and kind of some other things in there, just that platinum's 9.
hmm
And so if you have an extra dollar, you can get a platinum and a gold and a loot and
Maybe even a
or platinum's
silver.
10. Yeah, whatever.
Get a
Like so.
copper. Your
Well,
pendant,
yeah, you'll get the copper too. So
gondola.
I liked these random.
This seems like good payload. I think this
Mhm,
is good. I think this is like Windfall level. I probably gave
mhm.
Windfall a 7. Like, it feels like Windfall to me.
Windfall with way easier conditions to meet.
The condition is different. I mean, $10 is a different condition, and
Mhm.
what you're gaining is different, but the plus buy is baked in. So, like, yeah, I mean,
Yeah.
I think this is decent. It makes me mad about loot. Um, Finally, there are a bunch of traits. We're almost done. Stay with us, listener. Stay with us, Becki. Stay with us,
I've
Adam.
got it.
We're almost there. Traits. This is actually, I think, the coolest thing the set has to offer.
I really like them. I think they kind of add power to certain cards and stuff, and I think that's pretty cool.
This is traits are just so good. Traits are little landscapes, and they get attached to one of the kingdom cards, and they alter that kingdom card in some way. So this trait is cheap, and for this game, cheap cards cost 1 less. Um, what's another one? Cursed. When you gain a cursed card, gain a loot and a curse. So that means that pile doesn't exist for that game, for example. And then there's nearby. When you gain a nearby card, +1 buy. And so there's like like 15 of these things. And I think they're so neat. This is
Um,
just such a good design space, and I imagine more were tested, and these were the ones that were not totally awful like all of the
some of them are
time.
better than others.
Definitely. I remember there was one, I think,
Inherited is
Inspiring, or not Inspiring. Oh, Inherited is so cool. You replace a starting card of your choice with the inherited card. That's so cool. That's so cool. I remember there was a tireless acting troop one time. Tireless is when you discard a tireless card from play, set it aside, and put it onto your deck at the end of turn. So it was on a card that trashed itself when you play it. So like that never happened. LOL. There was no way to save you here. Like, just nope. It's
yeah.
tireless. We know you're tireless, but it just doesn't matter. And I thought that was funny. I think the big ones to watch out for. Inherited is in your face at the start of the game. Big
Right.
impact, but Pious, when you gain a Pious card, you may trash a card from your hand. You get a free plan token on it. Uh, that's ridiculous. Because if it's something you can open with, like, you're just getting that card now. LOL. Cursed makes it garbage. You get a loot and a curse when you gain a cursed card. That seems very bad. Unless loot is the only plus buy, unless you don't get it. LOL. Reckless. Follow the instructions to play reckless cards twice. When discarding one from play, return it to its pile. That's so cool, and has all the rules questions with it. You can get in the weeds with this one. Because you're following the instructions twice, but you aren't playing it twice.
Okay.
It's weird.
Inspiring can give you extra actions. So if it's on a terminal card, you can now make it no longer a terminal card.
Yeah. Inspiring is a village. A trait is a village. And that's funny.
So, yeah, they have, because a lot of them are just gain, which is like cool, but then like you can only gain so many cards, right?
Oh yeah,
Of
rich
the thing.
is
But then,
when you gain a rich card, gain a silver. I think that's funny.
but some of them are when you play them, which is cool too.
Yeah. So Plunder, this is a big set. There's a lot of new Dominion. We had a lot of new Dominion in 2022. I've been playing a lot more stuff going up on the YouTube channel, and all of a sudden I feel like a noob again. Just when I was starting to get my footing. I think this set is, in general, less powerful, more narrow overall, with the exception of a couple things I've whined about. I think the design is really clever and creative. And also, I'm excited to get back into playtesting for the next expansion. I don't think that's happening right now. I don't know when it will. I imagine after this deluge of 2022 content, it's going to be a minute before Donald X wants to start working on Dominion again. But like, I want to do it. I'll be there, and I will prevent awful things like whatever I complained about here from happening. You're welcome.
I believe in you.
I'm glad you do. I will do my best, and we'll see how much of it sticks. Anyway, so thanks for listening. Remember, in the show notes, we're going to have a link to that poll where you can give your hot takes, rate the cards, and then be looking out on the blog at adamhorton.com for the results of those. If you're interested in seeing that, and then in a few months' time, we'll revisit that, see how the community's impressions have changed, and take some real power level cards, and we'll go from there with hopefully some content if anyone's alive at that point.
Thank you for inviting me.
Yeah, I played a lot of Dominion with Becki, and though she may not feel comfortable in her ability enough to authoritatively talk strategy, I think a Hot Takes podcast is a perfect place, especially
Hey, I
when
talk some strategy.
yeah, and I mean, whenever I disagreed with a rating, I told you why, and I respect your ratings. I mean,
Mine was way more subjective, so.
all ratings are subjective.
Yeah, but mine were like particularly subjective.
None of these ratings mean anything at all.
So.
But there they were for you
like
on
3 hours.
Making Luck, a Dominion podcast. Hope you enjoyed that. Take whatever strategic value that you feel is appropriate from it, which is probably more than what I do. But we all had fun here. Your 3-hour road trip, you got to spend it with us. And yeah, there's maybe more stuff. I don't know. It's not up to me entirely. Yeah. Thanks for listening.
That was fun.
Yeah. These things, they usually take 3 hours, and I just can't blame it on Wandering Winder anymore, can I? So I assume you've never actually listened to an episode of the podcast before?
I have.
Oh, really?
One.
Which one did you
So
listen
the
to?
last one you did with the last card intros, or when the Sea Hag left, I listened to that whole one.
Wow, the whole episode. That was a long one.
Well, I had it on like while I was doing other things. It's not like I like sat attentively and listened to it.
Oh, well, okay. Well, it's been nice being friends with you, but that's over now.
Okay, bestie.